Good morning. We are here for our first negotiation for our Lamarque Police Officers Association and the City of Lamarque. We are going to open this negotiation with introductions. I am Keith Bell. I'm the mayor of the City of Lamarque. And I will turn it over to Cesar Garcia, who is our new city manager, and he will be the leader of our negotiations this term.
Thank you, Mayor. Welcome to all who are here. I know last year we had Gus present to be the chief negotiator. At this point, Gus is here for reference as needed, but we will serve in this capacity. I will be serving in that capacity. Has everybody had a chance to read the round rules as to how we are? Does anybody have any questions on that before we start?
We haven't been presented with any ground rules, although we have prepared the draft of the rules that we had in the previous negotiation session.
Absolutely.
I don't know if Gus has already done that and was going to, have it here for you today, but since we didn't know the members of your bargaining team yet, we really couldn't complete it. But I mean, I have it pulled up, and if you wanted to effectively
Send that to you now, John.
He's sending that to you now for reference. I think it's the same document that you had previously.
Right.
So we'll have that for review shortly here. Gus is going to send it to you now. Before we start, we want to make sure that we have an amicable understanding that we're here to negotiate, but we're all on the same team. Okay. We're all vying towards the things that we need to do. Sat through plenty of different type of negotiations per se. The outcome is when we're done with this, we're still going to be on the same team. Okay, so there's no division and so forth. I think you guys are intimately aware of the situation we're facing with our rollback and so forth. So you understand that situation. We're not going to get more money this year than we had last year. We're going to get less. A lot of it is budgeting. A lot of it is just how we're going to work things out. But I wanted to preface that as we pull the stuff up that we need to do to have time move along. I'm willing to go line by line, section by section, whatever capacity we need to. I want to make sure that everything that you have questions on is heard. We'll likely have to take some things back. Obviously, there's a cycle of things that correspond as we're doing this. And then we come back collectively and say, okay, here's where we are with this situation. I guess that's a simple walkthrough where we are. Any questions on that?
No.
Good. Excellent. As you read it, we can go along as the actual fleet representative ground rules are.
Y'all want to probably introduce yourselves?
Sure. My name is John Kerr, and I'm have been the lead negotiator for the bargaining team, employee of the Combined Law Enforcement Association of Texas. I was here last year assisting them with contract negotiations.
Conan King, I'm the president of the Marque Police Association.
Kenneth Hernandez, I'm the vice president of the association.
Richard Garcia, member of the bargaining team and a member of the Police Officer Association.
Joshua Human, member of the Police Association.
We need to introduce ourselves. Chief, you want to go first?
Brandon Aragon, police chief. I definitely concur with Caesar's comments about the money situation. We're bare bones on everything. We just lost over $1.1 million. So it's going to be tough. And I know John Kerr is tough too, but we got to make sure we look at things very objectively. Thank you.
Ms. Patty Reese, and she's furthest from the microphone. Go ahead and introduce her. She's our Human Resources Director and Civil Service. Thank you. Obviously, Mayor Bell, my name is Cesar Garcia, as your city manager, and in this case, serving as your negotiator. Also in the room, we have a member of our city who is serves on boards, and she's here to listen as well. And we have Kyle working the IT. Connected virtually, we have Ms. Jennifer Earl, should anything be needed. She's our assistant out of our city manager's office. Gus, and also Susie, our finance director, should any questions come about. Okay.
We start with
Our ground rules, and I apologize for this. I know that some stuff already sent out earlier. I thought the ground rules were as well. My apologies, okay? We can go through them together. There's no need to rush. We can go through that. And essentially, it's just stating kind of what the ground rules are, essentially, how we're going to conduct ourselves and how we're going to move forward through these set of meetings and then negotiations.
These are essentially,
I'll share my screen so y'all can see any changes that are made.
Thank you, Gus.
on face value, this appears to be exactly what I've got kind of drafted up, which is from last year's session. However, we would request and would like to alter the rule so that affords us the opportunity to have these four gentlemen in addition to myself, whereas currently it says 4 members, including the chief negotiator. We'd like to add 1 if the city has no opposition to that.
Absolutely. Gus, can we change it from 4 members to 5 under item 1? Change it from 4 to 5?
Absolutely.
Good. See, we're already negotiating. There's another thing on there. Obviously, if more members need to come, have questions, whatever the case is, the second to last sentence says each side will advise the other of any changes in members of the team from meeting to meeting. The only reason why I'd like to really know if they're going to bring anything else is so we make sure we have enough chairs, tables, comfortable space, and so forth. Okay. Are you okay with section 1? So we can move to section 2. We don't take that. I just want to make sure.
Pretty much work for.
Yeah.
Mr. City Manager, I think we would be in concurrence that these are appropriate rules. And if you want to ask them today, I'm sure we'd be prepared to do that.
Okay.
You know, in the interest of time, we'd love to maximize your time because we know it's valuable. But
Certainly.
by the same token, we anticipated that the initial meeting would be to discuss the rules, you know, possibly execute them, and then maybe have an open dialogue about, you know, from your perspective, maybe the state of the city and your expectations of what you have to work with regards to the budget. And we'd like to give you a capsule version of what we'd like to present to you at the first formal meeting after the rules. So if that's okay with you.
I think that's perfect. That's along the lines of what we had. The only thing is I had you guys going first, but you'd like for me to go first, and I have no problem. If that's okay.
Any way you want to.
Sure.
I think it's important to set the stage.
Absolutely.
And you're the budget person as far as we're concerned.
Absolutely.
You got
So-
to make a presentation and satisfy the mayor and council members that you've done your job. So
Certainly. So what changes have occurred since in the last, I guess we'll call it 2 years, right? Without going separate from anything, we've had a very turbulent time within the city. A lot of changes, a lot of growth, right? A lot of incidents, up and down. We've dealt with COVID, all right? Nationally, that is something that was unexpected. Nobody was prepared to deal with, all right? And one thing we know is the very next day, the sun still came up. We're still here. We're still pushing. The Marque still exists. We're still moving forward. Challenges that existed prior to COVID probably don't exist now. Let's talk about growth. Your current department, and then Chief, I'll lean on you for a few of these things. Your current department hasn't really grown for our staff as much as we would like incrementally. Yes, the national average of 2 officers for every 1,000 folks puts us, if we're going to summarize, right? We're growing at a pretty steady pace. We're close to 19,000 residents, right? Yet our officers really haven't changed a whole lot in the last few years. Correct me if I'm wrong. Ms. Susie, if you're available, also correct me if I'm wrong, if there's any changes that I may not be privy to from what I've reviewed. But having said that, as growth continues to rise, our number should be about 38, right? If you take 19 times 2, That's where we should be, at 38. We're currently at 39. 39 officers. On paper, we're slightly above average. However, we both know that Lamarque is not also the average city in Texas. We also know that our crime rate, although we're working on reducing it, right, through community policing and different efforts, it's still not where it needs to be. So you're still challenged with that. Let's also talk about continued growth, right? We weren't expected to cross 18,000 until I think 2025, if I'm not mistaken, from what we saw, and probably closer to 19,000, closer to 2030. Here we are in 2022, and we're already at that threshold. We're a couple shades under 19,000, give or take. Projections show us going as high as 30,000 by the mid 2030s. And that's evident because we keep getting requests for plats and everything to be at the actual meetings. Okay, so the growth is there. The density is growing in the city. There's more of a need. Okay, also not naive to your space considerations. You're growing, there's more people, but you're still in the same space. Yes, we've become more hybrid. We become more where you work independently, work out of your cars. You don't use the space as often. But having spent several meetings that I've gone over there is a need for space. You have a lot going on in a short amount of space, and the space that's there is not necessarily conducive to. We're not naive to that, and I hope you've seen the things that we brought forward, that we're trying to bring forward, is trying to get your police station while still balancing how it is that we're going to pay for it. Nobody in the city doubts that there's a need for a police station. Nobody. On any side of any climate you have. The struggles right now with inflation at a record high, right? We're hovering at 8.5%, 9%. That we're going to, construction costs, everything else going up. How are the residents going to pay for such? So we're trying to get creative in ways that we're doing.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
also recently, late last night, I just received word from TML regarding workers' comp rate for next plan year. It's going to be up 63%. The reason for that is because of COVID. They're going to add in the COVID liability, where in past years they did. This will be the first year, because current year, actually 2021, we did have quite a few police officers caught COVID and filed for workers' comp. So that became an issue. So next plan year, that will be factored into the premiums, and that's why the 63%. In addition to COVID, it's also the legislative that, if you recall, recently we asked council to bless on the policy for public safety employees regarding COVID, that we have to give them time off, so forth. So I'm not going to go into the detail of that policy, but that has a lot to do with that 63% increase, because it is a liability on the city, and it only applies to public safety employees. So be prepared for that. It's going to be 63% increase in terms of workers' comp premiums for next year. So I don't know what to say. And according to TML, COVID has been around for almost 3 years, and they are projecting that it's probably going to be around for a while. So that's why they're adding in to the formula for premiums, where in past years we did not include COVID. Okay, so that's another cost.
So insurance is going up, workers' comp is going up. Insurance going up, we don't know the percentage. Workers' comp is going up by 63% already. As inflation and everything else rises, the cost of keeping people is also going up without even giving them a single red cent of any raise, no COLA, no nothing. It's still going to cost us more money. That's what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We cannot get around that.
Whew. All right.
That is something that was passed by the legislature. We simply can't.
I was not aware of that. I feared it was going to happen. I just didn't know it was going to happen in time before October 1st.
Well, we just learned the news just last night, so I just need to pass that on.
Okay. All right. Okay. We're not trying to paint a picture of doom and gloom. I was not aware of that. We're trying to find ways to provide better and more coverage. And here, just to keep our current coverage, is going to cost more than we currently pay. We know how important vital insurance is to all city employees, specifically for yourself because of the harm's way that you put yourselves in. Okay, having said that, going back to growth of the city, it's going to continue to grow. You need more officers, you need more space, you need the tools that you need to do your jobs. All right, we're not naive to that. Chief has a list of items that he's put in front of us, the things that you guys have desired that you may not have, the racks, the racks in the vehicles. Make sure we got 10 vehicles on order that hopefully will be arriving soon. Ms. Susie, do we have an update on when the vehicles will be arriving yet? The 10 vehicles we have on order?
No, sir, but I will check with Enterprise again.
Thank you, ma'am. If you could please have that in time for our next meeting if possible. Kyle and his team has already ordered the items you need for Untitled vehicles. So when it gets here, we're not worried about, oh, now we got to order the stuff for it. So those items have been ordered and are ready to be mounted soon after the vehicles arrive. And that's kind of where we stand since our last time we sat here. Vehicles were ordered. The items for the vehicles were ordered. We have a list of the items that Chief was presented with and presented that they were finding ways to try to fund them. And that's where we stand at present time. Moving forward, if I could take a moment to express what actually happened with the rollback. So with the rollback that was voted upon by the residents, not only is it that the rate was reduced. So yes, we're not naive. Property values have gone up, right? So the argument that the side of the rollback, right, that wanted the rollback to occur was saying, well, you're going to have the same amount of money coming in because you're going to, the property values are expected to grow. But we also know with the problems in the economy that are occurring now, we're also going to have less people pay taxes. Right? They're just not going to pay their property tax. So although our budget will be similar as to what it was this past year, but actually be less because we already know that, I mean, the forecast says that less people are going to pay their taxes and pay them like in a timely manner. So we're going to receive less in that case, right? And this is just not about CBA, just in general, explaining what the rollback is in case you keep hearing it or just in general and public you hear about it. Second thing that occurred with the actual rollback that is often not mentioned and thought of is the fact that folks now are going to take longer to make their payments, right? That's going to continue to happen, all right? Third thing about it is there's now more programs for forgiveness of homestead, the veterans, all those programs. There's more happening and there's more marketing for that because they're trying to, nationally, there's trying to be more programs to help offset the property value increase. Ultimately, all of that is going to affect what actually ends up happening. They're all projections, right? We operate based on projection. And there's the added fact that everybody for this fiscal year that had prepaid their taxes, right, now is due a refund. So the city has usually, we like to have between 90 and 120 days of reserve funds in case of an emergency or anything that is to occur. We were at about 91 days. However, and we're still trying to calculate what this number looks like, we're gonna have to now pay back to the county a sum of over $800,000, slightly over right now at first estimate of people that had already prepaid their taxes for this next year. So those funds are gonna come out of our reserves because it's already prepaid. So we understand, not only is it that we're gonna have the same amount as last year, but we already started off 800,000 in the hole. If that makes sense. If I want to make sure that you understand that. So when we're clamoring and you hear not just in your department, citywide this year, we're being a little more frugal is because we need to cut that to make that up. Right now, if emergency were to hit and we're having to be in storm season, right, we're very, very vulnerable. Okay, so we went from a 91-day buffer, right, that we were at to whatever 800,000 less creates of a buffer, which in my average is probably closer to maybe in the 40s. Okay, with probably less than 40s of where we are with our buffer for emergency purposes. Okay. Having said that, legal fees are mounting. Okay, we have a lot more people that are trying to defend themselves. Times are hard. People are now going to stores and falling down because they want to just try to claim money. There's more fraud occurring. Not naive to it. You turn the TV on, it's happening every day. You guys have a very tough job. You are under attack. Okay. It's not naive. You are under attack. You're an easy target because some officers nationally have painted a bad picture into the profession. Something you may not know. I got 3 siblings that are in law enforcement or have been in law enforcement. Okay, so understand where I'm coming from with this. It's hard. It's hard. Some of the things that are happening to you guys, not naive to it. What we're hoping to get out of this negotiation is solutions to provide a safer environment for you, a more welcoming environment, a more conducive environment, a more efficient environment, and a place where you, although you have really tough jobs, okay, is a better place for you to come home, to go home from when you leave here. Right? We want to make sure that this is a better environment than it was last year. Okay, we're competing against yesterday. The best of our yesterday is what we're competing against. That's what we're aiming for here. Having said that, that's my summary of kind of where we stand, where we are, including the rollback, our expansion, our growth, and what we're trying to do. Also, when are we set to hear back from the COPS grant? Should we be selected?
It'd be sometime in August, tomorrow.
August, and it's effective October 1st. Brief comment on that. The COPS grant is a grant that under Chief's leadership is being submitted to get you, we requested 6 officers. We're hoping to try to request more. We settled for 6 officers because there's a burden tied to it. The COPS grant allows a city, in our case, to get more officers should we be selected and funded. And there's a balance. We don't have to pay the full amount for them the first year. And then eventually it weans off until year 4. Then we have the full amount that we need to support for those officers. So in theory, if we're awarded, which we have a strong feeling that we may be, if we put in a strong application, we will then have 6 officers starting October. We'll be eligible for them to start October 1, right? With the understanding that they will be a full burden to the city. The way that it goes is, or it used to go was year 1, 75-25, then 50-50, then 25-75, then 100 on us. If y'all see how that scale would go. Okay. And if y'all know what I'm talking about, I'm sorry. I'm just assuming that nobody or anybody in the public that may not know. So I apologize. I'm not trying to be elementary, just making sure everybody understands what we're talking about. Excellent. That's the COPS grant. We're hoping we get funded. So that'll give you at least some bodies that will help. All right. Hopefully, knock on wood, we get that. That'll be 6 officers. In addition to that, we know that a lot of what you're doing has been reactive, trying to change to a more proactive setting. Okay. A lot of that, it comes from prevention. Believe it or not, that's what these community events, this community involvement, this community policing, that's what that is going to hopefully do. Provide your presence out there. We're going to have to find different ways to add to your presence. Okay. Chief has also submitted a grant. We should hear by the end of this month, if I'm not mistaken, which is a TAPS grant.
Right, should be any day.
Any day now. The TAPS grant, in case you don't know, for those listening that may not understand what the TAPS grant is that is a grant to provide overtime for your officers to be a presence in our school. And primarily the Marque High School is the one that we're targeting. All right, since we know that that's where a majority, the closest in age of where the crime that you may be battling out here in our streets. Okay, that's that side. That's what we've done from, I guess, last year to this year, correct? Amongst other things. We know that you're being spread thin. We're aware of that. We appreciate your presence at these meetings that you've been at, because it has helped settle down the meetings a little bit. I think we can all agree that their presence has done that. Unfortunately, it's the world that we live in. I mean, it's the world that we live in right now. The world that we're living in today is not what it was before. You've seen all these active shooter involvements. It's not what it is, which again, there's a target on you guys because of these things. You're the first responders when it comes to that type of threat. Okay. That concludes where we are, unless you have anything else. That concludes the city side. I will put my negotiator hat back on. Having said that,
You want to start or you want?
I'll let you go ahead.
We basically have had a series of meetings with our membership, and we kind of have an idea of what interests them with regards to, benefits and pay, but what we want to, wait for the feed of the new city manager is that to do these things and hire these people, we need to maintain a competitive salary. So we are very sensitive to everything that you just relayed. And I think everyone in this room, and myself included, I'm a retired police officer with 38 years of experience from a major city. So every year is a funding issue. It's a requirement of our state constitution. We fully understand that, but all the issues that you brought out, I trust that you will work through as the new city manager with your professional team of the chief and finance personnel and so forth. We want to make sure that we represent the best interests of the members and lay it to the city, the things that are of interest, and then in the best form of negotiations to arrive at a conclusion materially is the best interest of your citizens, your management, the police department, the officers. And so that's really our ultimate goal. We're making plans, and since we were kind of in a position not knowing what we needed to do here today, in our next scheduled meeting, we'd be prepared to provide you with proposals that we would like to make for your consideration with regards to trying to maintain that competitive salary advantage in the area and make this city stronger. But like I said, this is all in the context of your budget process we have to go through. Formerly in the city, we've had multi-year contracts. Last year, at the request of the mayor, we seriously considered just a 1-year contract or an extension, if you will, with the resources provided at the time, because at that moment in time, there was not a city manager named. There was an interim city manager, and there's been changes. So we joined with the mayor and the city in the best interest and basically kicked the ball down the road. Now, whether or not the position is better or worse now, that's a sign of the time. And we fully understand, how the process works. We've been here before. We look forward to working with a new person who has challenging opportunities before them right now to show how good of a city manager you're going to be. So we thoroughly understand where we're coming from. So, but we still believe, there is a process of, bargaining negotiations where, we give you opportunities to, reflect on things we'd like to add or subtract from the contract and vice versa. So other than you have a juggling act to do this year with your finances, we hear you, and we certainly acknowledge it's going to be one of those years. But we want to indicate to you, we'd like to go back to the methodology of having a multi-year contract. We'll make recommendations with regards to what we think would be in the best interest of all concerned with regards to, continuing financing of salary increases or additions that we think are thoroughly appropriate in the competitive market that we live in right now in this area. So, and we look forward to hearing the things that you have to say as well. So, but outside of that, the president may want to make some comments. We feel your pain. Don't misunderstand.
Before you do that, I know Chief would like to say something.
City manager mentioned, I've mentioned this at some of the meetings. We need to start PD. I haven't turned it in yet, but city manager's going to be receiving my assessment of departmental operations, which I would have done probably within the first 90 days. But I had another hat I was wearing, and it was done. So within probably 30 days, you will receive my assessment of our department's operations and my recommendations on moving forward. In those recommendations, I want us to start moving beyond working harder and faster towards working smarter. We really need to do that. I'll give you an example. In my recommendations to the city manager is, Richard, how long does it take you to write a larceny report? Mary Jones' bike is stolen and you have to go out there. Approximately how much time do you spend? Up to an hour, maybe? Okay, it's about an hour. I say 45 minutes. From you getting out there, writing the report and turning it in, and then your sergeant, you're reading it, you probably spend about an hour. We need to hire call takers on a part-time basis, 30 hours a week, that do nothing. And major departments do this. I think we've talked about this. They sit in a room that cleared through TLITs and all this stuff. And that larceny call gets sent to them from dispatch. And they sit there in that room and write the report. You don't even have to go out there at all. Maybe you have to read it, review it. So that one civilian who's costing maybe $17 an hour versus $28, $29 an hour. And you're out there patrolling further. So I'm gonna recommend 2 call takers on a part-time basis. The return on that investment is gonna be immense. Number 2, we need to consider our evidence from operation. You all know how great it is, right? That's a joke. Anyway, I'm gonna recommend we put somebody in there, again, a part-time civilian to work with Gene, okay? These are recommendations that are gonna make us be more, like you say, proficient and professional. So these are, okay, another thing, our dispatch, we wanna have 2 people sitting there ideally, so one goes to the bathroom every now and then, you know what I'm saying? We only have 1 normally. Since I've been around here over 10 years, we've never had a full staff of dispatch personnel. We need to have the rule on dispatch, on sitting in the seat. If you want 1 person to be 24 hours, the rule is 4.5 times that number. If you want to have 2 sitting there, 4.5 times 2 is what? 9. That's how many dispatch personnel we're supposed to have. So that's going to be a recommendation. You are not going to believe the overtime we save. We're paying, I've signed sheets 15 hours every 2 weeks for certain telecommunications, overtime. That shouldn't happen. So that's going to be another recommendation to the city. I just want to let you know.
In that sense too, I mean, right now, I mean, if we're openly talking, we have, I'm sorry, I cut you off. We have vacancies we can't fill.
Right.
The job market is scarce. You talked about adding officers. Well, it's not gonna matter if we can't get people to apply. You know, there's a job scarcity. There's someone called it the great retirement or the great resignation that we're going. Folks just are not working as much, or they're finding other forms of work from home or whatever the case is since COVID. So the pros and cons, we got great at virtual stuff, but people are actually doing that for work now, and they're choosing not to do other forms of work. So that's a problem too. We can't get enough people to apply, and it's a tough position. My wife did that for a while. It was tough. It's very tough. It's very tough to deal with, Mr. King. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
While I understand how difficult it is to get people to apply, having a benefits package and pay package that is conducive to bringing people in and making them want to work here is one of the ultimate goals of the association, is to make sure that we can attract the appropriate people that are going to serve this city and serve it well. You know, we do that by trying to maintain a benefits package that's competitive with the agencies that are around us. We're currently in a position that most of the agencies around us have received large increases in pay in the last year.
And they're going to get more this year.
That is going to hurt us very badly. You know, it affects the type of applicants we receive. If we can't present a benefit package and pay package that is competitive with those places, those are the places that are going to get the employees that are going to be more beneficial for the city. We should be trying to attract those people, and that's what we're here to try and ultimately achieve. You know, we do agree that it is difficult, and we understand that, but at the same time, we have to reach for what we can get to try and attract the people to come here. You know, it also has to do with retention. If an officer has been here for 4 or 5 years and they can go over and start out making more money than they're making at 5 years here, how do we justify keeping that employee? We do that by trying to keep their benefits where it's capable to let them allow to continue to work here and serve here and serve the citizens of Lamar, give them the ability to do so, because they have a family to feed. They have bills to pay just the same as everybody else does. You know, so we want to try and provide that capability for them so they don't have to go somewhere else to do that. They can do that right here.
Okay. Something that would be beneficial to us, Ms. Patty, if you or Susie could help. I'm sorry to interrupt. We finished?
No, you.
Ms. Patty, if it's possible, and or Susie, do we have copies that we can do of the latest HVAC study of our neighboring cities?
We're waiting on
Okay. So in the benefit of not having that one, if we can prepare for everybody to share, take home whenever we're done, we're ready to take the next step, because I think you brought up a great point. Two comparisons of that is finding out all comparisons as to what the benefits are for other cities. So for example, sick, vacation, if I leave something out, let me know. Sick, vacation, insurance, the incentive pay, all the different levels of pay that are tied to all ranks of police. Okay, if we can have that for comparison as a resource, because you brought up a good point. Let's bring that as a factual backup to have. And although we're gonna go by last year, since this year's isn't finished, if during this process that we're having, the new one is done, then we can go from there. Is that fair?
I believe that's fair.
Okay. In addition to that, let's also, I have a question since you brought up retention. It's a great point. A comparison of what other cities are doing. Understand where we're at, right? So we have a responsibility for the budget, but we also respond to the residents into decisions that we make and why we make them. And there's also understanding that there's different people we need to make them for, not just yourselves. So in that, we need to make sure that we have a comparative bit of information to share amongst everybody else. Okay. In this case, help us help you. We need to find out, Chief, and if you don't mind, obviously anybody here or from your team that can assist, we need to find out what the retention rates are.
I got it.
You have all the retention rates amongst other cities.
5-year rate,
Excellent. The retention rate.
avoidable, unavoidable, and the overall turnover.
Excellent.
And the
Thank you.
reason why they left.
Okay. So retention rate, reason why we left, that's good. That's important, especially the reason why we left, because we can attack the actual retention rate. Now you brought something else up that occurred. Almost discussed as if it was a step plan, right? In some method, because by year 5, what that looks like. Let's bring comparable facts back so we can, one, address amongst ourselves. Together, see where all sides stand. And then when we make a suggestion, we can make it based off of how we compare with everybody else. Is that fair? Or any other suggestions you have? Because now we're going through the rates that we talked about. We talked about, kind of recap a little bit where we left off. We said that workers' comp was going to be more expensive. Insurance is going to cost more. There's a need for a competitive salary. It takes you 30 minutes to an hour to write a request. We're suggesting some call takers part-time. I have a pin in that. There's also a public perception that we're going to pay you more, but you're going to show up less. Again, I'm not saying that's the case, but think about that. Just because a larceny isn't a big deal in the realm of things, if nothing ever happens to me, a larceny to me might be a big deal, or whoever's actually making the call. So keep that in mind as whatever decision we're making. Maybe in that sense, it could be, hey, you're going to show up. By the way, everything's good. I've assessed it. We're going to hand you off to the call taker. To where now you're not there for 30, 45 minutes. You're there. Hey, I'm here. Just wanted to know we're addressing the situation. And you're going to hand him off to the call takers. You have to stand there and waste your valuable time, your eyes, ears, your vehicle to be out there. So maybe that's a caveat, a twist to that. And maybe that could be received as something else we could possibly do. Because I agree that call takers could be a great
Some more
method
time
to
on
do.
the street.
Absolutely. All right. I think that's an amicable solution there in that sense. Okay. Good point, actually.
Well, we're enthused by the knowledge that you want to look at this in a total comparative nature. And, you know, kind of bring you up to speed. When you weren't here last year, one of the things that we did, we brought to the city what we felt like was an appropriate survey of the marketplace to give you the input about what the salaries were in surrounding areas. We didn't look at it in the context of the total comp because it takes quite a amount of time. But with regard to standard pay practices within the area, we would be doing that again this time. But we really enjoy the idea of doing a total comp. I mean, we feel like every aspect of it is important to take into consideration. So, but we already have the knowledge on kind of where our pay plan stands in context of everyone else. One of the things we did last year with the hard work of everyone at the table is we perfected some additions to modify and adjust the current pay structure so that it became more competitive and compressed, and then also make sure that we had a problem with compression, where basically the promoted positions were being, crushed into the officer position. So we did make progress with the assistance and the concurrence of the city and put a little money into that. So when you're talking about pay, part of our presentation to you would be a continuation of what would be necessary to bring our current pay plan into the proper perspective. And so, that's always an area where your HR director is going to have a lot of input, and then it's all about finances. So we get that. But that's really, like I said, we're intrigued by the idea of trying to do a total comp study. But it does take time, and I don't know what resources you already have on track.
Actually, because of our consortium that we're part of, one is already completed. We just need to pull, I mean, it does every city position. It's 100, probably 200 something page document. So we need to pull out the ones that would affect, obviously, police, right? And then I'm assuming we'll probably need the same for fire, so we might as well just get that going as well. If that's up there.
We'd love for you to share that with us. Like I said, as part of this whole process, and I would hope that you would agree that we don't want any arguments to be about the numbers. We want, we want to portray the accurate, water line, if you will. Our perspective may be the glass is half empty, yours is it's half full, but we want credible, solid comparative information that gives us, a legitimate place and time that we all work on. And that's what we want to, present to you, is that, use us as resources of this department that, know how it is out on the street and work with the troops day in and day out, know the concerns, and we can help you fix any problem. And we understand it may take a multi-funding endeavor over time to arrive at a conclusion, but we're looking for ultimate success and comparability and making sure that every one of these officers continues to work with this department and their tenure only grows.
To that point, I'd like to also say I'm intrigued by the fact that you said of a multi-year contract, because I think one, it's better for you, right? But it's also better for us because it allows us to establish ourselves in panel for the future. So that is also intriguing because of that possibility. Having said that, we have a challenging situation. We have markers for this board. By the way, you got markers up there, Kyle? Are there markers there? You have markers for this board? Yeah.
Benefits. I was gonna say, our neighboring city, Texas.
Okay.
I need to put my hand up. Yeah.
Okay, our neighboring city, Texas City, I understand has gone up 7% on their salaries, which is real hard to compete with. But we do have, for our benefits for our police officers, they do have 50% off of their dependent insurance, or they get an HRA, which is $1,200 a year. Texas City doesn't have anything like that. Their benefits program is, they're self-insured. They pay like $400 a month per employee. So we do have some things to offset it, but I do understand your competition with them, make what you make per hour. That's hard to compete with. But remember this, our benefits are a lot better. So, but we, in our HGAC thing, assessment that we come back soon, you'll see, we'll be able to compare to different cities that are our size. We can't compare to Texas City, but they're a neighboring city. So we don't want our officers going over there. I understand what you're saying, because they're right there. And we really want to keep you on.
They're recruiting hard.
I know. We've just recently, in this last year since the pandemic, have like 3 exams a year, every 3 months we have an exam, because we can't get the officers that we need. So, but we're trying. And so we have one July 19th. I just want to talk about the benefits and just a little bit, that we do have good benefits for our police compared to Texas City. I'm sorry about the salaries. They're way ahead of us, but they're also bigger. So that's all. But I'm from my officers. So, and we want to fight for y'all's benefits.
Pardon me, because I can't talk. So, but also for the benefit of those that are in the public, they can't see the sheet. I'm sorry. We're doing this, we can't hear this. I just saw the sheet. So our challenge is that we talk about what we have for the budget. We're gonna try to add things. Right? This is a pizza. Imagine it being a pizza. And we have those Sharpies. Right. So imagine this is our pizza. So currently, thank you, sir. This is excellent. Currently, our pizza has, let's call it, in this case, 39 slices. Right? So imagine this happening within 30 seconds. Problem is we need, what you're pretty much saying is we need a bigger pizza with more toppings, right? Hopefully better dough, better ingredients and everything else, right? That's what we're hoping, right? That's what we want. And we want it, the problem is better dough, better ingredients. Pizza, right? By adding all these things, we pay more. There's an increase. So the more we add, price goes up. Okay. Challenge we also have in this case is there's a need. We need to have at least 39 slices, regardless. Right? I don't know when they do pizzas. Some pizzas get more sausage, we get more pepperoni, whatever. Those are your higher ranking positions. They just happen to get. No one just puts all the ingredients on one side, but that's how it's split. Our challenge is we're trying to offer more, not go up in price, but stay the same or close to it because of our budget challenge. Now, everything is not doom and gloom. We do know that, and counter, I guess we want to find out, is as the property values continue to rise, we're not going to always be in this predicament. It's going to take us 2 to 3 years to get to where we want to be as the property values continue to rise. We may face another rollback very soon. It's inevitable. SB 2 is passed. It allows us to grow a certain amount of growth per year. What does that mean? If next year a property value increase as such, and it equates to more than a 3.5% growth, and Susie, if I'm saying this wrong, let me know. If it equates to more than a 3.5% growth, we're going to roll back again. We're going to be the same predicament. Okay. So having said that, we want more without having to pay more. Not that we don't think you deserve more. The city doesn't think you deserve more, doesn't feel any capacity. We want to give you best dough, best ingredient, best everything. And we've now, with our study that we're about to do, that we just passed Monday night, once that's done, right, we also want to have more slices of the pizza. We want to ultimately get to where the pizza continues to grow. We have more slices, and it does have better ingredients, but we need to find a way to do so in some capacity by cutting things off, okay? What does that mean? Do we offer better ingredients and maybe have this new sauceless pizza that's out, right? And you have pizza, the white pizza has no sauce. So you're getting pizza, it's getting great ingredients, you're getting quality stuff, but it's missing something. The problem is we need to do so without splitting this too much. That's our challenge. So the challenge that we're going to get out of this whole exercise we're doing is how do we do this to where this is cut the same way, right? Imagine this is 39 slices, right? Imagine it's 39 slices. But that we continue to cut it in a number of pieces that we need and hopefully add a couple more, right? That's our intention. We're going to try to add 6 more to this grant. We're going to pay for it with X amount of years. And then to do so with better ingredients, right? Whatever we decide to put on our toppings, what does that equate to? Better insurance, right? Better pay, better anything, right? Whatever we're offering, whatever these things are. The challenge that we're going to get out of this is we're going to add all the stuff that we want on our pizza, make it as good as a tasting pizza without increasing too much or at all, because we're going to get less money in our budget this year. We need your help in determining how we're going to do that. We want you to be part of the solution. Question is do we add better ingredients and we cut the amount of slices? Do we do that? Do we hopefully get this COPS grant and this TAPS grant that provide more officers and more help and more support to help offset these costs? Which, you know, if money didn't matter, maybe money didn't matter. Do we want more officers because we need help, you're already short-staffed, or do we want more pay? In a world that money didn't matter, more benefits, for example. Money doesn't matter. Do you personally want more benefits or do you want more help? Forget the dollars right now. You don't have to answer that right now unless you want to, right? But think about that. What do you want? What are you asking for? If money didn't matter, take money out of the equation, what is more important to you and to the 39 of you that are here living now? Is it more help or better benefits?
We have spots now that we can't fill, and so you're giving us 60 officers if this cops firms or cops. grant
Yeah, fine.
That goes through. Like, it's probably gonna take all 4 years to fill those 6 slots. The way things are going, we're never gonna be full. My 18 years, we've been full maybe years. Man, that's being generous.
Hold on a second. Aren't we about to be full with the ones you have in queue right now?
We have 36 on hand.
And you have 5 going through the process, or we're hoping to get 3?
It's really, right now, waiting for the next test.
Right, but-
July 19th is the next test.
So
Everybody,
of the 5 that passed,
they didn't make it.
they didn't make it. They didn't pass the next step.
They are not, as far as I know, they bombed out because of different reasons.
Okay,
So we're waiting on July 19th.
but to your point, let's find out what those reasons are. Something that we did or
Failing
didn't
to
do.
we put background thing.
All of them, okay, all right, well, that's, we can't. Right, that's not on us.
Different, we're,
But that's a job pool right now, right? Okay, so good point. What are we doing to recruit? Right? What are we doing to recruit? What are we doing to make ourselves more attractive? Right? What are we doing? What are we doing?
we are very, we have a very, very active, we're casting the net very wide, going to all the academies. We're advertising in all the local newspapers. Facebook is just, okay, give you an example, Caesar. Jason Davis, Miller. I asked him the other day why he came to us. Sitting back there doing security, because he wanted a city that had a lot of activity, and and that's one reason. And also the sign-on bonus was an attraction. I wasn't sure of that. He's the only one that would use it other than human. He came back. He left for personal reasons. He came back. He got the bonus. So Jason said that wasn't attractive for him. So we got one person to tell me that, and it means that we should need to continue that next year. That's $6,000. So the question is, we are very, very progressive and active on recruitment. We're doing everything we can. By the way, everybody else is too, because I'm on the boards. They're all visiting the academy, everybody. Now, money's not the most important thing on earth, but it's way ahead of whatever's in second place. It's a joke, but it's true. But what Conan said, Caesar is the mayor, and we all know this. We just don't have the budgetary revenue stream that other cities do. The mayor brings it out. Dickinson's got 21 million, and they're about our population. We've got 14 million budget, right? And so the only law we have is what comes out of my tailpipe. That's a joke, but it's true. Look at Texas City. That's the refinery capital of the Southeast United States. We got to balance. We got to come up. I wish you guys could help us with the solution, like Caesar said, because I want the picture to be full, but where do we take it from? That's going to be a real challenge this time.
Well, as was stated a minute ago, all right, I've been here 12 years. In that 12 years, we've never been fully staffed. All right, that's not going to change. As hard as we try to be realistic, that's not going to change. You have Texas City that's what, 14, 15 down, I believe. All right.
They are still.
And let's face it, they pay well, okay?
$5 more now, right?
But the job market is not going to allow it. Although, yes, new staff will greatly be appreciated and it'll be a benefit. The bottom line is that new staff normally refers to someone being short on patrol because there ain't nobody to hire to fill that spot. So being realistic, what we're saying is that we're going to take 6 officers from patrol and put them in those positions. Otherwise, those positions are going to sit vacant.
No, they're not. We won't do that.
Yeah, it's I'm just being realistic. You know, the bottom line is you're not gonna hire 6 officers.
If we,
As hard
So-
as we tried, we've gotten 3 in the last year.
So at the end,
So-
at the end of the day, let me ask us this. Let me just make a statement, and perhaps if I'm off base, then y'all let me know. Cities with better salary and benefit packages, with more to offer officers, do they struggle as much with recruitment and with retention of their officers? The answer is probably no, right? Right up in League City, I guarantee you, they got folks beating the doors down to work for their organization. And I'm sure there are others as well. So what that says to me is that our salary and benefit package is inferior. There's no way around that. There's no way around that at all. And it's causing us to have all sorts of issues, right? We're not able to recruit. We're not able to keep officers. And our ability to patrol, to secure, to protect our citizenry suffers, not because our officers aren't great officers, but because many times they're officers in transition. They're just coming in, right? Or they're on their way out because of whatever situations. Now, I believe that 90 to 95% of the citizens of the city of Lamarck want our police department to have everything that we need. 90 to, if you were to think about it, 17 to 18,000 of our residents would say, if you ask them today, give them whatever they need. The problem is there is less than 1% of our population that is the most vocal in our community. And the motives of that group of individuals perhaps should be called into question. But at the end of the day, you all are being affected by it. We are being affected by it. Those of us that want better police protection, those of us that want our officers to be safe and happy and trained and equipped and ready to respond. So how do we fix that? The way that we fix that is we have to go back into these communities and we have to remind them of those things that they have said to us are important. Everybody wants to be safe. Everybody wants to have a superior police department. Not only you guys, but us as well. So until we, as a community, until we're able to alert and to bring awareness to those members of our community that know nothing about what's happening. They don't know that we're having a police negotiation. They didn't vote in our tax rollback election. They are disconnected from everything that's happening in our city, and rightfully so. There's a lot of things happening in our country and in our world. But until we are able to engage those people and get those people to come out and support our police department, we're going to continue to struggle. We can do that as a council. Cesar can do that. Chief Argon can do that. The rest of our staff can do that to the best of our abilities. But at some point, we are going to need to develop a partnership with our LMPA so that we can get out into the streets, get into these neighborhoods, and alert people as to what this small fraction of people in our community are doing, not only to our entire city government, but what they are doing to you guys. Because ultimately what's going to happen is at the end of the day, we're going to find ourselves in a situation, and we already have, I'm sure, y'all can tell me their stories, where our police department has become overwhelmed by the criminal element in our community. We are headed down that road because of misplaced intentions and motives by less than 1% of our population. So we need to help each other bring awareness to, because this tax rollback election, a lot of the men and women that were coming in to vote, a lot of it was frustration, frustration, frustration. And so we need to make sure that they are aware of the things that we're doing in our community and how important those things are to the overall scheme of things. If we can get the majority of our community behind us, then we would have the impetus to move forward with a lot of the initiatives that we want to move forward with, including making sure that you guys are equipped and that you guys are compensated in a way that would allow for you all to do what we know that you can do to keep our streets safe and to secure the safety of our community members. So we really need your help. We need everybody to get off the bench and we need to start engaging our community because the vast majority of them do not know what's being done in our city and they don't know how it's affecting you guys.
Thank you, Mayor. So before we get, thank you. We've gotten a lot done already by signing that, making sure we're moving on the right page. Once we have all these documents for us to share, hopefully we'll have them here before we leave today. We'll get the old copy of last year's copy of the HGAC salary comparison, because it is available. We have a copy of it. So Ms. Patty, was Debbie working on getting that to us?
Yeah.
The actual HGAC salary comparison and so forth?
I'm waiting for them personally to send it.
No, we have it. We have last year's copy. Let's get a copy of last year's and pull which pages are related to, in this case, police. And let's get a copy in our hands right now if we can, so we can at least take that with us to have for review, so you can use it that. And if you have any, like you said, for us to share, and vice versa, if you have anything to share with us, please share it so we can be ready for our next session whenever we're ready for next.
We would also like, if you would provide us with a copy of your preliminary tax roll that's been presented to you already. I was gonna make a request, but if you have it, and you can provide it to us in advance of the open record request, it would certainly help everyone on the team to understand the revenue aspect.
Absolutely. Miss Susie, as of last time I checked, we had not received the preliminary tax roll yet, have we?
Yes, we have,
Okay.
last month.
Okay, could you please share that with all of us?
I can send it to Kyle. I cannot share my screen, I don't think.
Oh,
I
no,
can-
certainly. Please send it to Kyle and we'll get it, make sure that it gets out
Okay.
to everybody that's here today. We don't have a sign-in sheet here, but if we can get everybody's email address, we can get an email going so we can share everything. I think we got a sign-in sheet in the back of the room there for communication purposes to share everything back and forth. Thank you, ma'am. All right, so we talked about OT. I want to talk about overtime. Okay. Again, I think I may know the answer to this, but I don't want to assume, right? How do you guys feel about overtime specifically for detail, special events, so on and so forth, whether it's in-house or not in-house? What are your thoughts on that? And here's the reason why I asked the question. 3 months and a day now into it, I've been to several different events that we've hosted, and there's outside agencies providing we talk about money, right? So we're now touching into the money subject. Although it's more work, right? But it's still the fact that it's more money in your pocket. That's why I asked, are you care more about what your rate of pay is or what your take home pay is? I thank you very much for my gross pay, but I'm more worried about my net pay. That's what drives me. And I don't know how you guys are in your household. Having said that, that's what we talk about the benefit package, right? If you get paid the same rate you're at now, but we covered more of your benefit package to make it even a better benefit package, you're technically going to be taking home more money, right? So keep that in perspective as to what we're doing, which also those of you that, can talk to your financial planners, hopefully you have one, it would behoove us to not have more gross pay, right? For that sense, for the sake of taxes. But I asked a question about overtime. What are your thoughts on it? You talked about shortage in bodies, you're tired, you're overworked, you're already working overtime because you're short. My question is I want to make sure you guys have right of first refusal anytime something's gonna occur within our city limits. Because here we are already not paying you more, right? Not paying you enough, but other city events are taking place and outside agencies are providing those services. I can speak of now 2 or 3 events that we've held in the city in the last 3 months where it hasn't been so many of our offices, it's been outside agencies. What are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about that? Not that it really affects our conversation, but I thought it'd really be a point of starting, right? A starting point for us as we get through these terms.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand what you're talking about. So in reference to special details and stuff, special assignments inside the city for events and stuff, this city has an option to pay overtime for an officer to be there to conduct the security or run the event. Some of these events that are taking place that are within our city are not being run by the city. They're able to get their own security.
Not if we don't tell them that they can't, is what I'm saying.
Well, that would be up to the city on whether y'all wanted to do that or not.
That's why this is where we're talking about that, right? This is where we're saying, now here's the difference, okay? Mayor wants to throw, mayor's not mayor right now. He's somebody from anywhere else and he wants to throw a private event. He owns a business in the city. He wants to come in and throw an event for his place, for his place of business. And he wants to, he submits his special event permit. It now goes through each department. We find out how many firefighters we need, how many, whatever we need, how many, in this case, police officers we would need, right? Even a party next door, we're not, let's talk about the banquet hall next door. They're gonna have an event, they're gonna have this many people. When they cross the threshold, they need this many officers or whatever that is, right? Obviously, there's a number you have in mind because you provide one every time you have a special event. My question is then, is that we say, okay, our numbers, our formula dictates you need, I don't know, 6 officers, okay? Our police department now says, hey, we have this detail on next Saturday. It requires 6 officers, right? And hopefully you do it with enough time. So a month from now, you have 1 week to determine who wants to pick up this detail. In-house. Hopefully all 6 get picked up by in-house officers. I know we're short on numbers. Just go to the scenario with me, okay? We pick them all up through in-house. That's a great scenario because we're putting more money in our officers' pockets. In this case, the personal businesses, right? They are contributing toward overtime more money in the take-home pocket of these officers who pick up this detail. Another scenario is we went through the process, your event will require 6 officers, you're given the opportunity to right of first refusal. 4 officers only say, hey, I'll take it. Now we're in a predicament where, well, they're still missing 2 officers or otherwise they can't have the event. Then that's when we might guide them and say, well, here's our partner, our sister agency, our agent next door. We've got 4 covered, you still got to go pick up 2. My question is, if that hasn't transpired yet, how do you feel about that transpiring, that taking place?
I think people are burned out
That's fair.
in general. And we're already being required to cover certain things that we maybe don't want to. And I don't think we're gonna pick up extra stuff that people enjoy their off time.
Okay.
And I've worked
Thank you.
extra jobs where I probably work 1,000 hours a year at an extra job, which is about half what you work at your normal job.
That's a lot.
And quite tired. And since COVID happened, I've reduced it a lot. I do it my whole time. But I don't like being forced to work stuff, which that is usually lower story than being forced to work it. But I don't think extra jobs should be counted as a benefit.
Oh, no, it wasn't. That's why I said it has really nothing to do with what we're, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Nothing to do with what we're actually doing here. I just wanted to know where I almost felt that it was unfair to you all to offer to outside agency without offering it to you, at least offering it to you for you have right of first refusal. Different from a city event, right? A city event is, guys, listen, we got this many folks that we need out there. Hey, we need this many officers. How are we gonna work that out, right? The bigger the event, the more officers, it puts us in a more compromising position. So that's different, right? A city event being different. I'm talking about more of the private event. Because here's the thing. If the event requires us to have, again, 6 officers for a city event, we don't have 6 officers, well, we got a problem. Now it's not being volunteered, being voluntold. Hey, we need to do this because I don't want our taxpayers' dollars going to other people. If it's gonna go to somebody, in my opinion, it should at least one be offered to you first. If you can't do it, if it's a private event, that's a different story. But a city event, just held the city event the other day, and the dollars went to, so some of the dollars went to an outside entity. My question is what, again, you're saying you're burnt out, that's fine. But remember, there's 39 slices of pizza up there. How do the other slices of pizza, comparing humans to pizza, but you guys understand what I'm saying? How does everybody else feel about that? You might have somebody who may not have family, they may be younger, they may want to pick up the extra shifts if offered to them. How do they feel about that opportunity? Again, it's not related to the benefits and everything else. I'm just asking that question because here's things we can do that don't cost us any money, right? We could offer you that. That's the first thing we can do. That's an in-house policy change. We could say from now on, anybody comes to a special event, they need to do so with enough time. It's offered to them, you guys first. That's why I want to know, where does that fit?
How common is that? How common is it for a city to require that their officers be first in line for extra jobs from an event hall? Is that fairly common?
It's not required, right? But at least you have that option.
Well, there
Sometimes
are,
I feel like you're not given that option.
there are
So
many
I'm
different venues throughout the state that practice the procedures exactly based on what you're talking about. Different example might be San Antonio, where they have internally within the police department, they have an off-duty job permit office that staffs all the city events. Now, that venue has elected, and their government body has passed an ordinance that requires, if you're on city property and the city determines the prescribed amount of security, it must be city police officers who go through this office. Outside of, a city-owned facility, you're going to run into what I would refer to legitimate legal issues if they can provide more cost-effective. But the council and the city manager does have the opportunity to work through it. And when you talk about augmentation of your current staffing, there are venues who charge the coordinators of these events for that security, and city police officers working. So
and that's where we're at.
when you look in the world of full-time equivalents, I mean, I'm not saying that this is a profitable venture, but it pays for itself in the context that it also gives you reserve resources. And so full-time equivalents are full-time equivalents. Someone pays for them. But this might possibly be something you could leverage to create an alternative funding that allows your department to be larger than it is. And that is done in other venues. Now, I would suggest it would take a lot of study and a lot of evaluation and a working relationship so that everybody, all the stakeholders, get to come to the table and have input. But I'm very intrigued by, what you're laying on the table for these guys. But they want you to be aware of that they're working a lot of hours as it is now. So
That's why I said in
when you
an
talk,
ideal world.
we talk about part-time employment, they want you to know that it's in the context of the fact that they're working 12-hour shifts so many days in a row, and it's not always practical for them to, jump onto, if you will, an 8 or 10-hour event over at the entertainment venue. Because it doesn't, but that doesn't mean that they're not, not willing to look at something that might be beneficial both to the citizens and to the safety of the city, and this council and this city manager helping to control the quality of service that occurs at these venues. I think that's very much in your court. And so I think there's many options and possibilities to do that. And I'm sure you probably interacted with colleagues from other cities that have varying degrees of interest in that type of activity. But I know there are some cities that is highly regulated because the mayor and the council have a expressed desire to want to control the quality of policing that occurs in these events, especially when it occurs within a city-owned facility.
Fair enough. I just wanted to throw that out there to kind of find out what the thought process was on that, because city event versus private event are two totally separate things, right?
They are.
And I would also venture to ask this next question, and I don't know what your detail rate is. I believe it's 40, 45. What is it?
Like our extra job?
Yes.
I don't think we have a set. We try to. I don't know what the number is, 35.
Okay, so now, again, let's start at what's a comparable rate. You are now, as you mentioned, you have another job that you have at 1,000 hours a week, that's almost half a full-time job, it's a full part-time job that you would do outside of your regular services here. Well, obviously you do that because obviously you like it, you need it, you want it, and it's hopefully for fair pay, whatever that is that you do. So put that in perspective. When it comes to a special detail rate, we're going through our schedule of fees. We're announcing our new fees that are going to take place for the next 2 years. You say you didn't know the rate, whatever the rate was. For a private event, we could dictate what that rate is. Okay? You could dictate that now in your schedule of fees. So now, when you come to the table and say, listen, now it might be more, might be more worth, because instead of 30 something, maybe we pay 45, 42 and a half, whatever that is, right? Whatever that entails to be, that would be the case. These are the things where I'm telling you where it doesn't cost the city any extra money, but it makes it amicable where it's not worth your time, right? Because I would rather, if I'm gonna go to an event, whether private or public, at any of our parks or the banquet hall, or somebody wants to have a block party down the street, CBS wants to have a grand opening, a red ribbon, whatever they're having, I would prefer to be, me personally now talking as a resident and employee of the city, let it be a Marque police officer knowing that they're benefiting from that.
I think,
That might be a benefit, may or may not. You said you burnt out, that's your choice. But if you're taking on another job, it's because obviously you're getting, hopefully you're getting paid for it, right? So if you were able to do it in a way that was amicable and favorable to you and to all of you, right?
Mhm.
At whatever that rate dictated that we come up and say, that should be dictated right now. You tell me it's 47.50, tell me it's 50, tell me it's 55. I don't know what that rate is, right? That's gonna go up. Inflation's going up. There's a way to do that. Now you might be more like, well, wait a minute. I can come to the job where I'm at and I can work. I know I'm burnt out. I know I'm tired. But if I'm gonna do an extra job anyways, I might want to go work the 4th of July event because I'm gonna get, or somebody's private event, right? And I'm gonna get X amount of dollars.
I think what Richard's, Sergeant Garcia's, correct me if I'm wrong, Sergeant, what they're alluding to is in our future budgetary workshops and so forth, like we have a July 4th thing coming up, July 2nd. I don't think we've done that before. This is the first time. It was a great idea, but there's a letter out right now. I don't think they've seen it because it came out while they were in the meeting, that July 2nd, we need to work this all-day event, and it's going to be, the volunteer and those that don't volunteer might be asked to work, tasked to work.
That's not say volunteer, right?
Well, they're gonna
You're
be-
getting paid.
Well, the thing is, this is an event we never did before, and now we're doing it. It's great. I mean, it's council wants it and we're gonna do it, but it's gonna be a drain on their off time, because they all work some other places, or maybe they don't choose to work. They're gonna have to come in and work it. So what I want to say is, this is Randall Aragon, the police chief. In any of our future planning operations of any events, we need to understand that if it's going to be taking overtime, we're taking away from their off hours. They work 12-hour shifts. Another thing that I'm going to bring up into my assessment of operations, and I know Patty and I, we have words on this. They work around the clock. They're not 9 to 5 employees. When Patty has a meeting for her staff, they all come in, they're working 8 to 5. They don't work 8 to 5. They get off at 6 in the morning. They've been up 12 hours and they've been chasing people, criminals. So when they go to a class at 10 o'clock, they've been up 19 hours. They're freaking tired. So we need to start working on, Patty, I'm serious. This is in my assessment. We need to have classes during their hours of work. In other words, when Richard comes on at 6 p.m., he'll have a class. Half the shift will listen to the class then, and then the next day, the next shift will end. And they're on duty. They don't have to work 19 hours and sit there and start nodding. So this has got to, we got to think on this. You could really have to, look, ex-firefighter, our mayor knows what I'm talking about. They're off, they work 24 on, 48 off. It's no problem. Patty's people work 8 to 5. Great, but they don't.
You're currently.
So we need to work on that, really. I don't think there's an officer that will disagree with me.
In the past, what we've done.
We don't need to have classes 8 to 5, Patty, please.
No, this was we haven't done this in like 3 years.
I know it's important. That was an important class too.
And the only thing we've done before that, that we started satisfying what we don't have to do this kind of customer service that often, is we had them pay their own time.
Well, that, you know, how much overtime it costs us for that, a lot of overtime too. Yeah.
But it was a good thing, because it also did, training, and we haven't done it in like 3 or 4 years. So it's not like something we do all the time. I don't want to introduce, I know they work all night. It's not about
Well,
that. It's just-
I know that, let me tell you something, that was an important class, customer service. It's very important, but they need to do it during their duty hours. And we got to work that out in the future, and that's going to be sent to me, by me to the city manager, because they work too many hours to be up 19 hours and be listening to an instructor. I saw heads nodding, and I don't blame them.
So we're talking about a lot of different things here. Very few of those things that we're sharing has to do with the direct compensation packages, right?
Right.
Which is really the center and the heart of the negotiation, especially this negotiation. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. The more that our community knows, for example, let me give you an anecdote. So when I was in the Galveston Fire Department, I was on the executive board. I was a secretary for, I guess, 5-7 years. I don't remember how long. But one of the things that we did was we volunteered to take over our children's Mardi Gras parade. And our union proactively got into the community and engaged the members of the community. And that made us a stronger union. And that gave us more influence on things that were important to us: salaries, compensation packages, insurances, and things of that nature. And I'm sharing with you, union brother to union brother, one of the things that I am noticing in our community is that there is a frustration with a lot of our services, and it is a misplaced, misinformed, and misguided frustration in many instances. But that's something that's going to have to be resolved collectively by not only elected and appointed officials, but by police officers and police unions as well. Now, the thing is this: your job is not political, but it is political, right? The actual execution of your job is not political. It doesn't anticipate or recognize race, color, creed, religion, sexual orientation, and all of those things. But the everything else associated with your job function is political, which means that you and I and the rest of us have to make sure that our community is informed appropriately and that our community is inspired. And that's the thing. And that's the challenge of this negotiation. Whatever it is that we propose and that we decide to do, it has to be backed by the community, or else we will be in the same situation. There are people that will, and at every turn of progress, they will try to provide resistance, and it has nothing to do with you, nothing to do with you. But in order to move past this to a real negotiation with real compensation, that's where we are. That's where we are. We have to inspire the well-meaning members of our community that have been silent this entire time to come up and stand with our Lamarque Police Officers Association, saying we believe that these folks need everything that we could possibly give them to do their jobs appropriately. Right now, that narrative is being controlled by a few people, 10 people out of 19,000. And you all are suffering for that. And so that's where the work has to begin. We can negotiate. I'm willing. I am pro-police, as you all know. I will continue to be pro-police. The Safe City Initiative is something that I'm proud of and that this council is in full support of, and you all are the centerpiece of that. But we have to find a way, if we're going to have real negotiations, we have to find a way to break through to the other 18,990 folks that live in this town that would support you all in your effort to make this a safer community. There's no way of getting around that, guys. No way at all.
Thank you, Mayor. So for the sake of this, I would like to start kind of in a comparison place. So what you have in front of you is the HGAC salary comparison from last year. We do know we're waiting on the new one, right? So here's a little bit of a taste of what you're going to get so you understand the format. Is this, Mr. Kerr, is this essentially what this is the document we were talking about?
What's the acronym stand for?
What is it, what?
You said it's HBAC?
HGAC, so it's the Houston Galveston Area Council, okay? And it's a huge document, it's several hundred pages. This only includes salaries, right? And it just talks about average salary and then the auto provider or not. There's another part of this that also, I don't know if they cover the benefits, right? So that at least you have the salary portion so you can compare. What I would like to do for the sake of everybody here and for myself and those that may be listening from the public is you can just go to page 92 right now, okay? I want to find out what are our comparable cities, meaning which cities do we compare to and why? All right, so this is more for self-education, so we can have a comparable, right? There's some cities here we may not compare to.
And you have to understand, these are only ones that submitted their information, their compensation to the HDAC.
Correct.
And they do this brief for every one of the.
Okay, so let's go in order. Bay City, is that comparable? Yes or no?
It's a small city.
Okay, how about Bel Air?
That might be somewhat like us.
Yes? Huh?
Yeah, they're smaller.
I want to get
Much more affluent, but it's still, okay, so affluent, I'm gonna put a dollar sign next to that, but size?
I want to get the populations right now, so.
Okay.
Give me a second.
Okay, great.
It'll be just.
If there's any on this list that you think are comparable, is Hitchcock comparable?
Hitchcock is about 7,000.
Right, but is it comparable? I'm talking about also crime rate. How about crime rate? No, okay,
They wait for crime there.
all right. Which ones on here are comparable? Okay, okay, so the port is a comp.
Size or crime rate or?
Oh,
Because I think that our crime rate is leaps and bounds over most folks
okay,
on this list.
that's a good point.
What's the question? I didn't hear that.
No, Ms. Schuman said that our crime rate is probably higher than most of the
Oh,
cities,
yeah. Oh, yeah. Wait,
which is a very good point to make, right? And that's not shown here as a comparison. Again, we want to show this, we're gonna have data to back up whatever decisions that we put forward.
Well, this is really a heavy undertaking when we talk about, some of the cities are not listed here because they didn't respond, so
Texas City.
it might be one of these situations where we all compile some
Sure.
names of cities that we know that we have data on, and maybe offer that up at a meeting. Because it's
Absolutely.
always good to have an agreement about what is the competitive market. And, but I don't know, everybody has their own opinion, but it's
Sure.
kind of like the last time we did a survey, I just, for the lack of knowing, who the city thought was competitive, I took all the bordering cities, places that an officer here could leave and drive within 20-25 minutes is potentially another employer they might go to work for. So that's how we did it. But when you talk about competitiveness and you talk about comparability, it involves several things: tax rates, the crime rates, the size of the departments, and things like that. But I think I'm thinking that you can arrive at a conclusion that everybody agrees with. These are the comparators, and if you do that, I think half the battle is done. And,
Absolutely.
You know,
It's just collecting the data from those
Right.
cities, right? So that's a great point, Mr. Kerr. So which cities are not listed on here that are comparables? I know you guys probably know them as well or better than we do.
I don't see Texas City on here.
Texas City didn't respond.
No.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't respond. So Texas City,
But
Well,
they're
I
way
mean-
above our population.
I know.
So looking at this list, I only see three. Is it three cities in the entire county on here?
Humble, LaPorte, and Seabrook.
Well, I mean, as far as cities within our county, there's only 3 that are on this list,
It needs to be in our county, I think.
And that's fine. This was just a starting point.
Yeah.
but
Well, I
in
think it's a great
regards,
starting point.
in regards to like crime rate,
Mhm.
to be honest, I don't even know that there may be one city on this entire list that
Which
might
one's that?
have comparable, which would probably be Humble.
Okay.
I don't, as far as violent crime, Sugarland, no.
Okay.
Maybe if you look at frauds and thefts and stuff, I'm sure that you probably find a higher rate there. But as far as violent crime,
And
We're way above the national average on violent crime, property crime, all that kind of stuff, way above the national average. Like we said, last one I looked at was on citydata.com, it's like we're saving like 10% of US cities. For the violent crime rate, stuff like that. Violent crime, we're way above the national average.
Oh, yeah.
so I guess, so we can provide comps, right? So we can
Well-
provide comps in this case.
Well, let me say the interesting aspect of what he just said is that then creates an issue within this city about how it funds its public safety. Other venues who have less crime and are not going to have the challenges that a city with more crime does. So it's going to be the hard work of the chief to create the appropriate battle plan and convince, city manager that the personnel he needs to get the job done is appropriate and you can fund it. So it's government 101, as we all know. And that's one of the benefits of having open sessions like this, because I think, the mayor hits the head of that nail. It's all about this cross-section of communication with the citizens and management of the city and the elected officials, and it's that balance. So everybody feels like they're getting the money's worth. And my presumption is every citizen of the city who pays taxes expects to receive the services that they see in every other city. How that's done is going to be, the expert management of the people that have the task to do. But sometimes, just by sheer volume of having additional tax revenues, it is a prioritization system. And so when you talk about comparability, if you compare what one community puts towards public safety versus another, that is a comparison of itself. The number of officers to do the job and the number of firefighters, the cost. I mean, we could all be equal, but we're never going to be equal. You know what I'm saying? It's all dialed in to this governmental entity's ability to satisfy the requirements of government for its citizens and give them their bang for the buck, if you will. But education will help with that, absolutely. And I think, although this is a former chief, but new chief, I mean, he's got some very good ideas about how to get into that community. And this COP grant coming through and things like that, working, that communication can only improve. And I think that's, it's salesmanship, if the truth be known.
You all know that the city manager is going to be signing that manpower analysis contract for Dr. Ernest Penn to tell us realistically and scientifically how many officers we should have. And we're going to have that problem. I want that prior to the
We can
budget.
get them, right?
Sir?
Well, hopefully we can get the officers to fill these
Well,
positions,
it's going to say,
At least
stop
what we
saying
need.
we're shorthanded. We're
can
going to
show
know
it.
what we should have. And it's going to be prior to the budget.
Okay.
So we try to get there.
Okay.
What we have is, it's big city problems in a small town. We have the problem is big cities, we don't have budget for it. But like a lot of these other cities, if you get an aggravated robbery, it goes to the store, I mean, we get 6, 7, 8 officers out there. That's the case scenario with us. And you get 4 with it. And that's only until we determine the act is no longer a location. That one officer's out there by himself. And that's very realistic for us. On a best case scenario, we get a major accident on the freeway, that's the entire shift. Or let's say when you get a shooting, which happens very frequently here, that's the entire shift. And if a major accident does happen on the freeway, there's nothing to do. And get another outside agency to come out there and do it. That's really what we work with on a very daily basis on our shifts.
What cities do you think would help you with the compensation? What cities compared to us as far as population, tax rate, in crime, but I don't know about crime in the city. So what do you suggest we look into help
Do you have any?
that compared to us? that we can help them with?
You mean on this list, Patty?
No, any other city are saying population, taxation, crime rates. I don't know anything about crime rates in other cities.
You know, like John said, when you look at comparisons, you've got to look at the whole picture. Because demographics play into it. I know we could pick cities with the same population and even the same officers numbers, but you got those 13 factors of crime that cause crime. Like top it off, our violent crime rate is higher than the state's rate. And if you look at our cities, and it's in the Lamarque Safe City Initiative, I sent it out to everybody. You saw it. We're higher than every city in our county. So, you know, we're already starting out with knowing that you just can't compare population and numbers. You gotta, see what I'm saying?
Engineer, what cities we compare ourselves to the overall picture, so we can know.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, it needs,
Yeah,
yeah, that's what.
I think we added.
yeah, you could.
And again, to that point, not only we want to ideally look in Texas, right? So, but also one that has similar demographics as well. I mean, we're a very unique situation. We have about 33% of Hispanic, Black and white, similar, whichever we can get closer. I don't know if one maybe Soto. Is the Soto comparable? I know it's not. I'm just saying, if we can't find any comps in our county, other outliers that we can find.
Cities perhaps around Dallas that are small.
They should have.
same problems. Cities around San Antonio that are small.
And if not in-state, right, if we know out of state that we could, if we lift the Lamarque and put it somewhere else, right, that might be closer comparable. Maybe I know that the Baltimore area, Maryland, we may be very similar to at the outskirts of Baltimore. Is there a city somewhere else that offers this combination of density in some places, not in others? So we can have comps, right? We can have comps, crime rate, demographics, density, so on and so forth. It may be hard to find because Lamarque is very unique. You know, maybe some areas outside of in Louisiana, in the New Orleans, to the outskirts of New Orleans, maybe. If we find one, then that could be something we could use.
Sarge, what would be good? Okay, our county, I think the only city that's about our size is Dickinson. Am I correct? Texas City is 55.
How do we compare in crime rate and?
We're way, they're like, you know, down the bottom. We're way above. Dickinson.
Way above or below?
Sir?
There's less crime.
We have more crime.
Okay.
We have more crime. We have more crime period than Dickinson. I got it in the Lamarque Safe City Initiative. Look at the charts. What I'm going to suggest, to get this thing right, and you want to get the right factors, get cities. You can't go with our county because we only got one, Dickinson, and we beat the heck out of them. Is get cities with a similar crime rate that we have, with a similar population and a similar number of officers, and then look at salaries. If we're working as hard as Smith City, Utah, and their crime rate's the same, they got the same number of officers, and they're getting paid a whole lot more, that's something to look at. But then again, we're not Utah. You know what I'm saying? We're Texas, and our, taxes are higher. So, but still, it's better than just looking at Kima, which they're waiting for crime. As Hitchcock, they're waiting for crime. We don't have to wait for it. It's here. You know what I'm saying? I kid about it, but it's true. Bel Air, we went up there and visited. They wait for crime, and they got a good department. They got a brand new police department. So I think if you have crime rate the same, the number of officers same, and the population same, and you show numbers on with their salaries, I think that's going to be a big factor.
I think that's one factor, but then I think we probably need to dig deeper because we have the feedback here. I mean, one of the things that we said that we struggle with is retention.
Yeah.
And if you look into what retention is, usually you have officers making the estimation that at that juncture in their career,
Right.
that either they need more compensation, rightfully so, to provide for their families, or they need to be protected more
Mhm.
so that they can return to their families, right? We're asking our officers to come into one of the most unfortunate, violent communities in our state, to Mr. Eunice's point, in our country. We're asking them to come into, risk their lives in those environments, and yet continue to pay them at a lower rate than cities that have less crime and that provide less damage. And so not only should we look at salary surveys, we should also look at feedback. Our officers are leaving in droves. Why?
Mhm.
Why? And that should be a problem that we can address in a collective bargaining experience. We should be able to do something here that would prevent those things from happening as frequent as they do. So let's not just look at other cities that are similar. Let's also look at what our officers are telling us, because I think that sometimes as a firefighter, when people started to talk about salary surveys, I started to think about, but this is Galveston. This is an island, right? We have so many different challenges, and we're people who are telling you what our challenges are. So I think we need to put more faith in these men and women of the Marque Police Department to tell us exactly what conditions they face. See if we can resolve some of those, so that we move forward.
I think a lot of what we run into is workload on a lot of these officers, because a lot of what we get is, if it's a misdemeanor crime, it's on that officer to really look at your own. So if you go to a family violence call, and you take the report on there, let's say you try and run up to district attorney's office and they don't take the charge. Well, that's on the officer himself to complete the investigation. That doesn't trigger to a detective. So what happens is once they complete the report, it goes back into their investigator dashboard, and then the onus is on them to complete the investigation. If the warrant comes back, to complete the warrant, they have to do supplements on all that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of stuff as opposed to, like, say, Pasadena. Pasadena has a family violence investigator. That's his job. So once you do the report, it's on him to file the warrant. It's on him to do all that kind of stuff. A lot of this stuff is put on our officers.
A very important aspect, and I'm sure the chief will attest to this, if you're gonna do a study of necessary resources to staff your city, it's gotta be consistent with a realistic work model of what one of his officers can actually do in any given space of time. That's really the basis of almost every staffing study, is that realistic workload model. And it's different for a police officer versus a detective versus a supervisor. And so if you have a consulting company working on it, they're going to take all those parameters, put them together when they determine the staffing. And then they're going to ask some, pointy questions that have to be answered by the stakeholders. How much preventative patrol time do you want for the police department to be able to go out and ferret out the criminal element in the city and try to eradicate those problems? And so all those things go into the matrix of determining how many is enough and how many is not enough. And so once you have that, you're going to have a really good idea. And like I said, I would encourage the chief and everyone involved to include as stakeholders, as members from this association, because they literally go out and do the job every single day, and they can tell you how long it takes to process a DWI arrest. They can tell you how long and what the trials and tribulations are, if you will, of actually doing this function, and knowing where that maybe there can be some efficiencies in the process. And I'm sure the chief and the command staff of the department work very diligently at all times to try to maximize process for efficiency. And just from some of the things you said today, we're trying to look at that in the future for sure. Part of that's, but sometimes doing that comparison, and it just, because I had been involved in another venue that had the same exact dialogue, sometimes it's something you can't determine at the table on today's date. But given just an example of one group that went down the same path, and this, venue, this city, they put together a little work group, and that work group determined what the final criteria should be, or help develop that criteria, what the perfect comparison would be for its city. And just to give you an example of some of the things that they thought through, obviously geographic proximity has something to do with it. The use of enterprise funds within your funding capability. And I'm not saying you use these, I'm just saying these are some that another municipality in this state.
What was the first one again, Mr.?
Geographic proximity to the city that you're in, and then operating revenues, within the context of getting everybody's CAFRs and looking at making a realistic comparison. Personnel strength, the departments, the unemployment rate of the venue is one. There's a plethora of criteria. I'm just telling you that there was 12 set out of many that this particular venue decided was important for them to make a comparison. And so crime rate for property crimes was one of those. Violent crime rates against persons in the venues was one of those. Compelling business reasons is one of the categories, but, they use that, general heading, if you will, to identify certain things about that had a compelling business reason that they should make it part of the comparison. And it was like retention of the officers on the department. Participation, how easy can you get all this data? It's great to come up with this perfect list, but if you can't get data from anybody, it's not going to work for you. But the average size of the families within the venue, the population that has to be served, there's many different aspects of what might be worked through for your city to determine what it feels like is the exact right comparison. But even once you have that, then you're going to do a comparison, and then however you fit into there just gives you a benchmark of where you need to work or where you are. And so those are all great concepts. And I think the professional management concepts, and that's what we would want you to know, that we're willing and able to join with you and try to help you, arrive at what the best case scenario is. And the bottom line, it makes everybody's life easier. And like I said, materially, it's all about the citizens getting the service that they deserve and need in this community. And I think you got awesome dynamics to try to do that. But it's always a work in progress in every one of the municipalities throughout the state. And it's an ever-changing financial market, revenues, tax base, and so forth. And that's just quicker, easier, faster should be the wave of the future, if you will.
And Mr. Kerr and to the entire group, one of the things that we're challenged with is now, as SB2 continues to be a challenge, and it will be for years, property taxes are going to continue to go down as the assessment value goes up. Cities across the entire state and nationally are going to be tasked to get more sales tax revenue, which is what we're in the process of doing. Texas expansion, the fact that we have the most amount of frontage on 45 out of the entire county, and the most undeveloped amount of frontage on 45. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we do receive more sales tax revenue. The problem is we know Texas is not going to finish another 2 years, and we're not going to feel the effect of that development until 2 years after they actually open, right? It takes about a 2-year cycle to start receiving. So what I do ask is, in your request, in your ask, and once you have that, unless you want to start discussing it now, that you consider possibly a scaling effect, meaning it might be incremental at first while we recover from the blows of the first round of SB2, to then scale that growth request that you're making. And I do actually do that because I understand it's not that, like Mayor mentioned, not that we want to, not that we don't find the need. It's obviously clear that it's there, but we need time to catch up to this blow that we've been hitting. That's my I guess request, if you will, in that perspective. But and having said that, I'm sorry, does anybody need a break? You guys okay? We're good? I mean, you guys are tired.
If you feel like we need to take a break, we
No,
can take a
I'm
break.
good. I'm just asking because I'll go on. Stop. Ms. Patty?
I was just going to say, I see what you're saying. The Marque is a huge city as far as crime. So I really think that gentlemen here or any other one that wants to help us with the conversation. We know more about your cities, we compare. We want to help you, we want to be there, but we're going to need your help as far as compensation to compare, especially the crime rate and all of the things you said. So.
I think it's our main goal here, is just kind of show you how valuable we are, just how much work that we do around here. just kind of, that's how we're trying to get our compensation on here. And, you know, the kind of going rate for us is, you know, we always say, you know, if you work 2 years in the market, that gives you 5 years experience anywhere else. And I think in the last few years, that's drastic. I'm sure if you work 2 years here, that's gone to 10 years experience somewhere else. You know, you can go an entire career without seeing a homicide in some departments. Here, you're gonna see one before you get trained, guaranteed. So within your first 4 months of working here, you're gonna see a homicide. Just how much work that we do here, how much we see, just kind of how much understaffed we are. I mean, that's really kind of what we're here to convey and kind of go up our compensation benefits.
And Mr. Human, the sad truth of what you said is what the basis of the problem is. Right? Here we have property values increasing when, as the value of living in these homes due to the crime, the actual correlation doesn't match. I hope we are all here long enough working together to make not a homicide be a regular occurrence within the market. I think that's everybody's aim in this room, regardless of the compensation. We will join, like was mentioned, we will join the profession to be in that action activity because I'm thrilled for it. The truth is as you enter different stages of your life, you may or may not want that. As you have a different perspective on life, right? Different professions, you don't want that. So as we work to reduce that, I appreciate what you said, because that's a scary reality that we hope changes, and we work towards changing it very soon. What you have in front of you too is the compensation comparisons. Again, might be a moot point if it's not comparable cities, but at least we know what we're comparing, right? What are the actual KPIs that we're looking to compare? What are the key performance indicators, or in this case, what are the actual comparable things we want to know about the other cities that could be considered comps? Once they fit the demographic, what are we looking for? Okay, now let's look at what is the rate of pay, what does the package look like, and so on and so forth. If there's anything that's missing from here, then let us know, right? Let us know what else is missing to do this. Or any other studies that you may find that we need to share, bring to the table, that would be helpful here. And we'll continue to search the thing as well as we're doing this. I'm challenged, but I'm encouraged because I think we're saying the same thing. It's just a matter of how do we make the pie better tasting and with better ingredients without making it bigger right now because of our current situation. Because we're in the process right now, so you guys understand. There's also the percentage, how much of the budget is public safety. I'm very firm in believing that as the higher rate of increase of crime and so on and so forth, you're going to have a higher percentage of your public safety of the city's budget being coming up from public safety. So for me, the challenge with that is, and if we've had conversations with certain department heads, we're going to have to eliminate positions to help offset some of these natural increases. So how can we add more officers? How can we add more firefighters? How can we add more code enforcement, all these things that are out there with the same size pot, right? And do that. So my next question, and it's a very, very tough question. Very tough question. And I already know the answer, but very tough question, because we need to make a strategic look at what we're doing. We're talking about especially freezing open positions right now. But everything comes at a cost, right? Do we eliminate some public works positions? Do we eliminate some positions in, I don't know, utility billing? Not to say that, but I'm asking different departments, where do we cut from to make up the difference? Do we now have a crustless pizza, right? Because we need to fit that. That's where the challenge is, that we're already partaking. We're already partaking and looking at how we can cut things, how we can save money on our insurance. What can we do without losing the quality of the pizza, but where can we eliminate positions? So I'm gonna ask you, and I've asked Chief, I don't like that I'm about to say this publicly, but if you had to eliminate a position or 2 or 5 to make up the difference of what we're asking for, if the pie can't get any bigger, where do we cut it from? No similar than the budgets in your own homes, right? Do you have to now cut the cable and switch to only streaming Wi-Fi and Netflix or whatever it is you do? If your budget isn't gonna increase at home, right? Even though there's inflation, everything's more expensive, gas has gone up, what are we gonna do? We're gonna start going out less possibly. We're probably gonna stay home more, probably gonna cook more instead of going out more. If it can't flex, my question is, where can we do that? I know that's more of a chief question, budget wise and so on and so forth, but I'm gonna ask you guys from a service now, we're talking about adding potentially, great point, a family service investigator. We talked about getting some potential two part-time call takers that are responders. Where do we cut from in order to add? I'm already looking to cut from other city departments and services, and those of them that may be listening are be like, well, where the heck are you gonna cut from? We're already overworked. Just because they're not like you guys doesn't mean that they're not overworked too. So that's my question. Where do we cut from? Is there a place that we can cut from that you guys observe? Right now we're being part of the solution. Where can we cut from where you are? I don't know the answer is probably would be nowhere, but maybe there is.
I think they're in a unique position to look at efficiencies and make recommendations, but one thing we have, the elephant in the room, as far as I'm concerned, and I've been in municipal government in one form or fashion for 40 years. When you look at this pie and the number of pieces that there are, there's a reality that sets in, especially in context of Senate Bill 2. We can't be all things to all people. And so we're going to go through as a community, as a land, if you will, if we're going to be conservative, we're going to have to go through a downscaling of what the slices are. And, I'm sure when you do your budget, you have the pie chart out there. And there may be one whole slice of the pie that the citizens have to make a decision about that they're not going to have anymore. Now, I realize, when you think about evolution, cities have libraries, they have parks, they have good streets, they have any number of issues that their tax dollars has to go for. But I mean, I didn't make it this way, but I can almost guarantee you that if you survey your taxpayers, you're going to find that it's pretty much, uniform across this state and across this land, that public safety is very high in the priority list. So at the sacrifice of other services that the city is attempting to fulfill, there may have to be a hard and fast decision about what services, what master plan can we have that gets us good service in these areas. And some things people may have to, resort back to paying for themselves if they want some, but not requiring that every citizen have the opportunity to partake in some, but finding out that only 90% of the population even cares about something. I mean, it's going to be a prioritization of money, but that doesn't change the fact that this is a competitive job market all the way around, not just for police, not just for fire, and not person working in public works or the water department. It is a competitive employment industry, and unfortunately, that's the reality. And the reality, we can try to figure out how best. And I'll tell you, the benefit is there's not anybody at this table that joined public safety because they wanted to be a millionaire. They joined it because they had a desire to serve and to be involved. And so you got good, hard workers, that are there, but we can't be, as a city, as a government, we can't be all things to all people. And you're in a position where you're going to have to start prioritizing how we spend money in every community. And there will be some services that have to be sacrificed. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
So
I agree with you, but the question is what's important to one, not important to some, public safety being the number one thing as of most importance. We have to find the balance. Right. So, for example, we're already talking about eliminating positions in other places, right? We're talking about having any type of remote work being done. It may mean that we need to do things a little bit differently. Right. I'm aware that it means we're like right now, we're going through a scheduled feed, which hopefully will be heard here at our next council meeting, where we're putting together a fee structure, right? That'll be more expensive than we are, because right now comparisons are being done for how our fees are for other things compared to other cities, and they're not quite where they should be. But again, just like the tax situation, it's going to take a couple of years for that to set in, right? We need more development to occur for that to happen. There's certain things that need to occur for that to take place. And you're right. I mean, we're cutting things left and right. And staff knows it. We're cutting a lot of things and we need to continue to cut. We need to continue, and I hate to use this word, but maybe trim some of the fat, right? And we're not naive to that. There's no naiveness to that at all. Where we're trying to prioritize is where we cut, because the work doesn't go away. You're saying services, but the work doesn't go away. The work doesn't go away. So, and you're in a unique situation, right? Because, so for example, fire collects some funds when they do their, correct me if I'm wrong, when they do the response by ambulance or anything else, where we're instituting a fee for those type of things. So they offset whatever. As their call rate goes up, right? They presumably their billing would go up, right? There's nothing that you do that, or can do even, that helps on that side of it, right? There's not like, hey, if we respond to your house for, you know, a call that you're going to be taxed a certain amount of dollars or an assessment or whatever the case is. There isn't a fee to that. So that's a challenging part, because the need is there, right? The wherewithal is there. And I'm not comparing police to fire. Understand what I'm saying? It's true for somebody going to go service a home for water, right? Oh, you know, I need a new meter. Well, we're gonna charge for the meter, we're gonna charge for the labor for that meter, and then we're gonna get a return because there's a water rate for that. It's gonna help pay for that expense. No true with anything else that we do. There's an inherent cost. So the question is how, right? The question is how. So I'm up for creativity, and that's why even as I challenge Chief, and we're trying to bring a grant writer in, is what can we do to help offset some of those costs?
Right.
To address some of these issues.
Well, when you talk about efficiencies as well, I think the chief's on the right track, and then he wants to expand into the community policing model. The more eyes and ears and commitment from citizens of this city to help police the city is going to maximize efficiency of their time, where they can respond to the calls and then help lower the cost. So it's a prevention aspect there. If the crime goes down, you know, it allows more time for police, quality police. So, you know, it's just, you know, we're all dealing with these things. And I think it's fair to say since 2008, every city in this state has had to, you know, figure out how to be leaner and meaner and get the job done. And it doesn't seem to be any, you know, relief in sight when you talk about funding, but it's just more the same. That's why, you know, government's learning new approaches each and every day, and I'm sure you appreciate that.
Absolutely.
You're the master of ceremonies here. So.
I kid, and I see Kyle's in the room. We had to go to the TDM conference, and we're slowly going to start weaning away from some of that stuff if we can, if it's possible for us to do so, because training is important, but, you know, again, trimming the fat, right? So we're trying to do what we need to do. But we made our trip worthwhile. We went to the exhibitor's booth and we were like, we need office supplies. So if you see us around with a bunch of pens from all these different companies and so forth, because we're to that point, we have to change our mentality. What can we do to contribute? So our post-its may not be nice with the logo on it. They might just be plain, because we're going to downsize what we're going to order, right? Our trash bags that we give out at UV that we sell, that may not have the city logo on them anymore, right? There's different things that we're going to now offer and have to do moving forward to find a way to cover those expenses. I mean, so we won't be ordering office supplies for a while because of that thing. We're trying to digitize our process so we can spend less money on toner and ink and so on and so forth. You're working on digitizing all of your stuff as well, so you can have effort, time, efficiency, the use of modern technology. Can we take a moment and talk about your benefits? I mean, and this is just a comparison to this right now. If y'all could pitch the second packet you got, it says page 13. I want to notice something here, okay? And I want you guys to understand something, and it's not listed on here, but also we're talking about pension, obviously retirement, so on and so forth. What about other contributions? Ms. Patty, are they tied to the CBA for the 457? They use Mission Square? All of our civil service are offered the Mission Square 457 plan, right? Okay. Well, no, that's the HR. I'm talking about for retirement purposes. So Mission Square, do they get an option to be in the 457 plan? Yes. Okay. All right. Before I offer that. Reason why I say that is because hopefully, and as you guys know, with the economy changing, the value of the dollar changing, you guys are also planning for your future. Okay, that's important. So make sure that we're doing that and you're taking advantage of those options. And I'll say that, put on the financial planning hat in that case, because your dollars are important for you to start putting them aside. But if you look across at the Marque, we offer 100% of employee, right? 0 of dependent.
That's not accurate.
Okay,
It should be 50%.
should be 50% for you guys.
Mhm.
But for
That's for our.
the rest of the city, the rest of the employees, it's not that case. Okay, all right. So for the sake of police, I'm gonna put 50% on medical. Right? What about on dental? Same?
The city doesn't offer dental vision. We get it through, it's incorporated in our dues. We go do monthly dues, and they're the ones that supply us with.
Why don't we offer dental?
The city pays for their dental benefits, but it's done through the prepaid dental optical trust. that Cleveland
Okay, so
Farm for
the
Union.
city's providing it.
City provides, through that venue,
Through
but it doesn't, I don't know what your dental coverages that you may offer as voluntary benefits throughout the city. I just know about.
So
what
for
they're
you
doing.
guys, where it says employee 100%, for dental, it's actually 0, but we cover it through Cleveland.
Yeah.
Okay. City pays for it. What about for your dependents?
I'd have to study what the actual premium is.
Okay. Remember, there's more to it than just the dollar, the salary, right? So I think we can do, because all this affects your take home pay and also taking care of your families. That's very important.
Well, I think they're keenly aware of the total compensation aspect of this, because, if the pay was much lower in some of these guys' eyes, and it wasn't offset by some of the benefits you could provide, they would be worried if they could make in beat and would be forced to try to go find it.
So my question is what can we do? Forget money again for a second. What can we do to make the benefits better? Can we maybe look at incurring more of a burden in that sense as part of your ask? I'm just saying that. And again, it doesn't affect everybody, right? Because you may be on a plan for you. You may be on one for you and your spouse. You may be one for you and your family, right? So obviously it's different, but collectively, how does that work? How does that look? So take that and chew on that, not to be answered now, but look at this comparable as well to see what that looks like. The reason why I say that is because $1 given to you, it's more than $1, right? Because now that dollar is more like 70 cents. Because, well, what is it? 85 cents because of the taxes, right? So there's an inhibit. You don't get that whole $1. But if we put that $1 toward maybe your benefit package, you get more out of it. So just a thought. And I know Susie's getting back on, but just a thought in that case.
It's certainly another aspect, and I think these guys will be, intrigued by trying to do an inventory, if you will, of their thoughts on that. But all too often we just concentrate on money, and so I think we get the idea. I mean, you're not going to be paying payroll tax on a benefit. You're not going to be paying, nor is the city. So it's probably a win-win proposition.
We're stretching our dollar, and it actually. You can continue your same pay rate,
Right.
let's say, for the sake of this conversation, but if we offered you $1, if we had two scenarios
Right.
where we offered you $1 more in pay and we offered you $1 more in benefits, and you're at the same rate of pay, same length, longevity, whatever the case is, the one that we cover same dollar value, the one that we offer more of $1 in benefits is going to get more of a benefit in their take home pay, which is really what matters, right? Because you don't pay your bills with your gross, you pay with your net. So keep that in mind as well, because that's something that could also help all of us. Helps the taxpayer because it's not as much of a burden, right? It helps you because it affects your take home, and affects the city because it doesn't hurt us as much when it comes to the fact of paying taxes. We're not trying to get out of paying taxes. Please understand what I'm saying. We're just maximizing the effect of any dollar spent.
Well, we need to do an appraisal within our own group in the context that what what is value to a married person who has a spouse and children to worry about coverage of thing is may not be necessarily as prioritized as a single employee who works on the department.
Correct.
So, it's going to be that balance that we all try to see to get there, but we certainly hear what you're saying and realize that there is value in your words, because it is a reality that we all have to deal with.
So I'm
If
writing down
you
again.
consider maybe a gasoline stipend right now, I think we could knock this out of the park. but-
We'd be done already. All right, so appraisal of benefits package. That's a note I'm making that you guys will do, right?
And
Yeah.
another aspect that, there's kind of been attention drawn to the fact that the dependents of the police department are covered, but not other employees. That was in the school of negotiations and past contracts where that was an important benefit, for these folks, and may not have been for someone else. I can't weigh into that. And so as part of the total picture, it was laid at the table and negotiated over, and they retained it. Much of why they look at it like that is because if you look across the police market for comparability, the other cities that they talk to and know about are providing different and varying degrees of dependent coverage, or have not. I'll put it like that. Lots of venues have not cut that benefit because, as you well know, many years ago, all the different governmental municipalities probably provided health care for, the individual, maybe even at varying rates, and their family members. So everybody's looking for, like I said, that 2008 resonates again, and everybody had to look for reason. The GASB rules coming full swing, and, acknowledging your unfunded liabilities, all these factors went in that governments had to figure out all over the state how they want to address it. So in the context of negotiations, these guys place a value on that benefit, just like what you're talking about here. So I think there is that dialogue that's ongoing, and it's ever changing, and it's always subject to, evaluation to try to, once again, find that best bang for our bucks, your buck, taxpayers' bucks in their pockets. So
And let me.
We hear that.
Yeah, let me clarify, our LMPA, our police officers actually wanted more compensation during those periods, but historically in Lamar, we seem to never have enough funding. So we offered a compromise that they accepted. And so these men and women have been making sacrifices for this city since I've been on the council. And this 50% benefit package was something that we asked them to accept in lieu of compensation. And so they've been here every time that I've been privy to a negotiation with our police department, except for one. I think there was one time where we ended up making it right with you guys. It was like maybe a 23% raise over like 3 years or so. But every other time, every other negotiation, the city has basically said, we don't really have a lot of money. Can you work with us? And every time these men and women have stepped up to the plate and they've worked with us. And so that's just context SR on this 50% discussion that we're having. And I wanted you to have the right information as you move forward. That's probably why this is a sensitive subject to not necessarily these folks, but to the rank and file, because it was something they did to help us out yet again.
We also have the HRA. Most of our 50% off spouse insurance. Basically, like that. Maybe their spouse works. HRA, which is $12 a year for medical expenses. Most of our officers do that. Because they have either choice.
Our human resources, for those that are listening, our human resources director is speaking about an HRA component that the police officers can take advantage of. $1,200 benefit. They have a choice between the $1,200 benefit and
$1,200 per year for medical expenses, or
50% off of their dependent insurance, or a $1,200 HRA benefit. They can choose between one or the other.
Okay.
Hmm.
We'll talk about that. Mr. Duke, I thought you may have had to say something.
No.
Were you, I thought while Mayor were talking, does anybody want to add anything else right now?
Not at this moment.
Okay. Recap of our notes of the point. Suzie talked about an increase in our workers' comp coming, insurance is going to be more expensive, the need for a competitive salary. Takes 30 minutes to an hour to write a report, 2 call takers for part-time, evidence doing operation needs help. Our dispatchers were shorthanded and consequently paying overtime. Benefits package and the pay package is things that we need to look at. Other cities around us will be paying more. We've heard direct insight from public service from other cities that they've literally said, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when we're coming after your guys and gals. I mean, they've literally told us, we're gonna come and get yours. So if that's worth anything, we're not naive to that. Our retention rate, Chief, I know you said that you got that or we're working on finalizing that. Compression through promotions, that was noted. I appreciate you making that point. We looked at possible multi-year contract that we're here to sign here soon, and then scaling the increase to match what it is that our needs are, right? If that's a consideration we can possibly make. Our recruitment efforts, we need to increase them. Even if we had some of these positions, though, can we fill them, right? And that's one of the concerns. Salary and benefits package is inferior to others. We talked about overtime, how we want to handle that. I didn't bring up about substations, if that's something that would be necessary, needed, urge, or anything else, if that would help. Especially when you're on the other side of town, maybe, and you need access to a restroom or what have you.
Yes, I'm talking about substations.
Yes,
Can I mention something? About that?
absolutely.
I need to.
Yes.
Okay. There's the staff knows there's been a push for substations, a substation on Cedar. We are totally in support of substations because it brings us closer to the community. And you know, of course, Cedar is not that far from us anyway. We're, you know, probably 3/4 of a mile as the crow flies. What we need to convince whoever's wanting a substation. The one on Cedar, it's a high crime area. There was a shooting there. We all know what happened with Joshua Feast. It's in the same area. It's probably half a block away. The officers do not mind going there during the day and doing business and whatever they're going to, because it's going to be, I think, a joint thing there.
Well, that's what we're proposing.
But-
We're proposing the possibility of that.
They don't.
You're talking about a
You know,
city funded substation? Or you're talking about?
The laundromat on Cedar.
Possibly.
There's an office that one of the councilwomen, Kimberly Angie, wants that to be a substation. And it's a good idea to have her do, local business for as a political component. But we just need to understand, and I mentioned it to her, and I mentioned to Caesar in some fashion. Officers are concerned at 2 a.m. to have Sergeant Richard Garcia go in there and do some work and come out at 2 a.m. He's by himself. It's very, very unsafe. Now, if we had 12 officers parked there, it's a different story. So there's, they have to understand, whoever wants substations, and it could be somewhere else, that depending on the area, the officer safety is important. They could be ambushed at 2 a.m. and you know what I'm saying? So they'll use it during the day, no problem. But at night, we would not be working out of there. Even if we have another officer. with
And Chief, that's not even where I was going. I was going more for, hey, you need somewhere to sit down to go write a report, not necessarily at night, right?
No,
It was more of,
It was happened with work night. So
no, but what I'm saying is it's not in the middle of the evening, right?
Yeah.
So not, hey, you need to go somewhere for the restroom when you can't drive all the way around town. You may not want to go to the gas station, if you will. That's what I was saying. I wasn't even
Yeah.
referring to
Yeah.
that particular substation. I'm saying the need for them or co-op agreements of saying, hey, listen, would you mind if our officers come at night so you know where you may want to go? I was asking for that, what we can do, because you might want to come to use the restroom or get a bite to eat somewhere different, right?
Mhm.
So that's what I was asking. I wasn't going for that particular.
Yeah,
That
that's
wasn't the
what I'm saying.
subject I was even referring to. I was saying, the need for those type of things.
Right.
Obviously, you guys separate the city in your own divisions, quadrants, or districts, if you will. And you then, it may not behoove you to come all the way back. You're wasting time and so on and so forth to do whatever you do, to go on break or whatever the case is. Want to heat up your food, whatever you may have brought. You just need a place to go sit down and write a report because, you're doing this all day and, you're like your neck gets a little crooked in your back. That's what I was more referring to.
Okay.
Do we need to have them not there, but maybe in different places? Maybe we need to,
Somewhere on the west side.
West side's
so
necessary.
maybe having one at the fire station,
We
right?
have offices. We have 2 offices there.
Right, but are they being utilized? Does everybody get a chance to use them?
They're not being utilized due to lack of personnel.
Okay, well, hold on a second. Somebody's at that area.
Right.
So where do they go to use the facilities? Where do they go to heat up their food? Where do they go to write their reports? Where do they go take an exhale break? Where do they go to the restroom? And that's my point, right? Establishing more substations to go do those things. Not that more than one of you has to be there at a time, but technically there should, in theory, be a spot in each district, quadrant, jurisdiction that you should be able to go do that. So if you split into the city into X amount of numbers, that you should be able to go somewhere. Is it one at the shopping center there where Barcenas is? Is it somewhere? Where are we gonna put these locations is what I'm asking, if we provided those, if we help facilitate in providing those through relationships with some of these organizations.
I think the thing was, it got to be a council issue because of the cost. We got the fire station, enterprise, that's good. We got a man that was going to give us an area on the other side of Highway 3 free. So I think we're talking about like Cedar, that's pretty expensive.
I'm not talking about the money part. of it.
Okay,
I'm talking
yeah.
about the need.
Okay,
I'm not talking about the time. If you don't feel comfortable going there at 2 a.m, as she was saying, then obviously you as an officer won't go there.
Right.
Not to be there in the middle of the night. It's more of, it's 8 o'clock, I need to go to the restroom. I have a report to do, whatever the case is.
they do.
Let me do that somewhere else. Let me rotate where I am. So I'm not doing I mentioned this because you guys know the little typing that you do.
Right.
A sense of place of going, I can go somewhere. You know,
We
you
had a
touch.
substation out west before.
Not everybody does.
Yeah, and it wasn't.
It wasn't the best either.
We didn't use it.
So making it more accessible, is what you're saying, or just use, like you don't want it, you don't need it, it's not a desire.
Well-
That one, not everyone has access to. There's only maybe a handful of officers.
Okay, so access, so access.
Because I mean, that goes as far as a bunch of city facilities anyway, like if there's an alarm at the city hall here, then we don't, none of the officers have access. We can't get inside if there's an alarm. So I mean, it goes for a lot of city facilities that we don't have access to really anyway.
Why would you not have access after hours to all of our facilities?
We had,
There's
I
a set
mean-
of keys floating around somewhere, but.
Yeah.
No, what I'm asking is you guys have a badge, yes?
But we don't have access.
we had.
Okay, and can correct my naiveness in not knowing this, is there a reason?
There was a key.
Because we don't work out of. that
Those
building.
buildings.
Okay, so if you respond to the other day, there was a theft at CVS, but you're going in there after hours. So we're saying that we trust our officers more to go into a business that has a bunch of stuff that could potentially, I mean, again, I'm not, shame on us. Go to my office. I'm not worried. There's nothing in there to hide, right? My question is why, and this is more of an administrative question. And if you don't want to answer it now, maybe there's like some secret why we don't do this, but so why don't we have access?
Well, they used to have a key. There used to be a key for City Hall.
Well, we don't need a key. We have, I mean, right now, if I told Kyle, go ahead and get every police officer access, you probably have done before we walked out of here.
Get a card.
But you have a card.
So you do it.
They got a card.
No, you don't. Yeah, you do. Don't. God, please don't
They
start
get
with
in
that.
there.
But in theory, with that, now, if you had access, for example, to, now, it doesn't mean that at 2 o'clock in the morning, we're gonna have 3 officers over at building B, at the same time. Like, let's also have a little credence to this, right? Because let's rotate whatever we're gonna do.
So their ID card can get them in City Hall?
If I'm told to give them access.
Oh, well, that's what we need.
Again, not that you
Once
need
again,
it.
it's not, like you said,
Am I missing something?
shame on us, it's something administrative.
We'll get you an email with all the sergeants.
I mean, to,
Sound good? All the sergeants.
That we didn't do it, right? I thought it was
Well,
missing.
To be
if
honest,
you do that,
if
the
I
chief
come
will be in,
down
you
to City Hall for a meeting with
setting
you,
the precedent
I have to be
how
buzzed
all
in.
done, so.
What?
even if I'm in uniform, because our card doesn't work on the thing.
It doesn't-
You know,
And we can do.
It's been that way ever since we went to the cards.
Ever since you went to what?
The cards, the key cards.
Okay,
We can get it.
it's funny. The other day I went to the police station and not to be joking this time, but I went to the police station and I guess whoever dispatch didn't know about this, and I'm sitting there going, my card's not working. Like, there's no,
There's no dysfunction.
can we add that to that? All right, I'm just saying, I mean, there's no reason why,
Well, it doesn't
I
work
mean,
that
the
way.
mayor wants to walk in.
The front door doesn't have a key.
Okay.
Card.
So it's,
It's gotta be,
it's the little things, right?
it's a punch pad now.
It's, okay, but
It could be
punch
changed.
pad means you have to have a code,
Right. We can
the
change
code
it.
gets out, what happens instead,
And also leaves or whatever.
right, then all of a sudden you gotta change the code. Instead, if an officer leaves or whatever, no, we just, hey, we deactivate that person's access, oops, person's no longer with us, there you go, yeah.
We'll get it done.
Okay, great. I'm sure Kyle's already doing this, we're probably talking about it, but these are little things, right? Because now we may not have to request a substation. You can just go to building B or wherever you're going to go, right? Not that we want to put you in an unsafe environment, right? We talked about, but now it's about being able to just go do what you got to do. Go use a microwave, go heat up your food so you're not eating fast food at 2 in the morning, right? So it's little things. It's those little things that make a difference. That's a simple thing that didn't cost us more than probably some more badges and a couple more of those scanners, right?
Right.
We're all one, guys. We're just trying to figure this out.
You solved the problem right here.
All right. So if there's any other city facilities besides fire station, right? There's this fire station. There's essentially building A, B, and C, which is not right down the street from the fire station. There's here, police station. Essentially, what other, what gap in the city are we missing, I guess? So that's where we focus on finding a substation that is well lit, hopefully has some amenities that we could use, so you're not traveling all over the place. Help me find wherever that circle and say, all right, here's what we need one. And then let's go, that's for us to go start knocking the doors and saying, hey, how do you feel about having a substation in your shopping center or in wherever that would be? Okay, sorry, we didn't want to believe that, but I'm blown away by the fact that that's an access issue. I know you got a lot, but if you could change that, man, that'd be great. Jesus. All right. Yeah, add that in. Okay. And when we do have access, let them know they have access and let them know. And then please share, letting everybody know that you have access to anywhere. All right. All right. We left off talking about detailed pay. Please, if you have an idea, whatever you want to do, present that so we can put that in our policies and move that forward. Sorry, Chief. If you want to increase it, whatever it is set at now, do we have a set rate? Do we not? That's going to be your schedule of fees. That's going to be put up at the deadline is on the 27th, so we get it.
What was that on?
The detail pay, if we're going to include it, like we said, mentioned private reserves, what is that rate going to be? There's nothing stopping us from the extra job pay, the
Well,
detail.
it's overtime.
Well,
Well, no,
no, not if it's a private event. If the banquet hall has a graduation party and they need, they come with the fact that they need two, two officers, then what's that rate of pay? Let's put that in our schedule. Piece.
What
Someone
was
wants to
the
have a block
deadline?
party.
What you're going right for a part-time employee right now in the area unilaterally? I mean, there is one.
It's 40
You
to
want a
50,
set rate,
depending
not the
on
overtime.
what you're doing.
Is that what you're talking about?
Sorry.
It's about $40 to 50.
Okay.
But that's what the citizens paying.
Just send me something on that if you would, Colin.
That whatever you need that, whatever we're at, let's present that so we can make that into policy.
Well, that, my estimation that, that's a dialogue that Chief could have, because really it's, from his mindset, he wouldn't want his officers working or undercutting one another issues, but and working at a level. But he's also going to be concerned about the number of hours that they take on with regards to part-time employment.
Oh, no, and absolutely,
Yeah.
but
So I'm thinking, that setting of the rate, if you will, I mean, that's kind of a delicate thing, department to department, but there's a going rate, I guarantee you. What you don't want is a rate that then constables come in and take all the jobs because they'll undercut you by $50, you know what I'm saying? It's just-
but Mr. Curry, here's the beauty of it is when it's an event taking place in the city, we have it in our policies that we say, all right, officers have the right of first refusal, go there, this is what we have, here's what it is, here's a bill, and that's it, it's taken care of.
Right.
Right, and we collect those funds ahead of time, so when the officer, does it, they get their slip signed, here it is, here's my slip, I work 6 hours, 6 times 46, 17, whatever your rate's gonna be. You know what I'm saying? Don't be stuck to a round number either, right? It could be 47.50, 47.19, whatever you have to justify why you're picking that rate, right? And present that so we can put in our policies to move it forward and understand if we're signing a 3-year, let's say, assuming a 3-year contract as a result of this, and that's our rate because our schedule fee is gonna be adjusted every 2 years. So whatever rate you give us now, we're gonna visit again in 2024. So think about it, today's dollars, what it's gonna be, we know in 2024, we have a shot to increase it again. So maybe even from 47.19 to 47.87, whatever, I'm just shooting numbers out. Okay, present that so we can put that forward. And again, that maybe you won't have to work 1,000 hours.
Well, let me-
just make the 800, right? And that's your choice.
Yeah, let me plant the seed this way. In many venues that are looking at it like the way you do it, they set the rate at their overtime rate of pay. And so, and then in some cases, the city gets paid that plus their, there's employment cost. And so the factor is a round number, but there's many promoters that do things that just come to you and let you take care of everything for them. They'll do it and they pay the cost. It's just an add-on to doing business. And if you do it that way, then if it's overtime money and it goes on your pension and it takes care of your payroll tax and all that, it's of interest to police officers.
Then maybe that's what we approach it as. Okay? At least you have the right to refuse that. Then an outside agency, you go get somebody else, but you give us, you put your request in a month before you have your event, and 2 weeks before, here's what it is. Here, we weren't able to fulfill all 8 positions that you need to have your event. You're gonna fill 6, we'll find 2 more, and then they have to work under our jurisdiction of whoever's gonna be running the event from our perspective in our city. Because no one's gonna know Lamar like you, right? Cool. Detail pay, increasing it. Our comps, make sure we're similar in size, demographics, crime density, crime rate, and then the density in the cities. If you can help us get that data so we can compare apples to apples. We talked about your workload being high. What can we do to diffuse that workload? Maybe such as a family service investigator or any other positions. Now, would the family service investigator obviously be a field officer as well? Okay. Different from your part-time call takers, which would not be sworn.
Right, which all non-sworn personnel also do not fall under our CBA, so we can't negotiate on.
No, I was just asking the difference between the two.
And again, the bigger picture is this past budget, we added about 6 positions. And we saw what happened. So unless we are ready and willing to communicate to this community the dire needs of our police department, we're going to be in the same boat that we were in a few months ago. That's the problem. We can negotiate a golden cow to float out the sky. Unless we are able to engage and inspire the other 18,990 folks that live in this city, we will be back here again. We have to engage the other elements of our community. We've talked about a lot of stuff here, and I'm looking at our officers. And I used to be on that side of the table, and I'm sure they're thinking, I really just came to talk about salary, compensation, working conditions, training, education. And we are everywhere, and they are being patient with us. But at the end of the day, they want to negotiate things that are central to their functionality as police officers and also as members of their respective families. So we really need to get to a point that we are starting to set the rest of these negotiations up for salary, compensation, training, education, the benefit packages and the like. And also we need to be moving forward individually as a city and as an LMPA on moving the needle with our constituents. Because I guarantee you, I'm saying it to you again, I want you to remember this, until we are able to deal with and inspire the other 18,990 residents, none of this is going to matter at all to anybody, because there's an element in our community that is controlling the narrative. And it's detrimental to you guys as well as us. Till we get to that point, we're going to be spinning our wheels. But I would like for us to set some things up for the next meeting, because I know that you all have some asks. And we have some asks, I'm sure, as well. So I think we should move forward into what these next few meetings will look like.
Your recap was great, but I think the mayor makes a good point that, if we plan ahead and what we've previously done, and one of the things we left out of that Gus struck out of the rules is last time, we had 3 meetings. One meeting, we would make a presentation. The next, y'all would make a presentation. And then after the 3rd meeting, nobody could add to it. So, there is so much subject matter when it comes to running a city. We could have a fruitful meeting every single week. But that's not chapter 174, negotiation. But I'm telling you, these guys are willing to work with you and help you in any way they can, anytime. And sometimes putting together a work group of guys that go out and do the job will help you immensely. But so what procedure or format would you like to follow? We already have, as I see, 2 more meetings that have been tentatively scheduled. Do we want to maybe add to that schedule another meeting and planning ahead? Maybe have an off week and then come back. So we have a meeting, and then 1 week later, another meeting, and then 2 weeks later, another meeting, the 3rd meeting.
Certainly, I was going to recommend that at the end. Similar to as in sports, like in a 7-game series,
Right.
already the schedule is set for games 5, 6, and 7 with the president says if necessary. Right. So I would ask for us to do the same.
Sure.
Okay. And if we could work together administratively to schedule those accordingly. All right. It might help to make these shorter too, so we can have, I'd rather have more meetings shorter where you guys are tired. Right. I see it. You guys are hurting. So we left off on our workload being higher in our area, family service investigators, sworn opposition. If you could do an appraisal of a benefits package, and a note was made of HRA at a rate of 1,200 versus the regular insurance package. That being said, the next step would be to hear your ask. And then collectively finding out a way of how we're going to meet that ask and what your options are to help meet that ask.
Caesar, can I ask a question? Sir. I know we're talking about this detail pay. What do they really want? I want to make sure we're saying something.
I think they need time to take
Let me know
that,
then.
to take that back.
Let me know what you want. I mean, I want, because you get $60 an hour on overtime, you're going to get 40. You don't like that, right? So
Again,
we need to make sure we get it right.
that's why it needs to be, you guys take that back to your group,
I'll hang in.
provide that feedback, and then present it, and then we'll go from there. That's important. It's important. It's something that's shouldn't just be not meant, because as we continue to grow, we're going to get more requests for events.
What
As
happened?
COVID ends, people are going to get outdoors more, get to do things again. So it's going to continue.
Can I ask a question?
Sir.
Right now, as far as I know, Jeff handles off-duty requirements. Does he place it based on your overtime, or does he give a set rate?
There's a set rate. So we're talking about non-city functions.
Right, correct.
Like,
Bingo.
well, bingo's been here so long.
I know.
that They're way behind the time.
Okay.
They've been here for so long that we haven't pushed the rate up any, but like if the new event comes in.
But hold on a second. When we pass this new schedule of fees, that'll be the new thing for everybody.
Well, that's what that is.
I'm saying that we need to take that into consideration for us to know that it will be a formal process. We're going to approve our schedule of fees. Here's our new rate for private entities or private places having something, and this is what it is moving forward. It's
Right.
not, oh, well, bingo's been around forever, so they get a reduced. No, it's not.
He negotiates it right now. One of our lieutenants, it's always been that way. Most departments do that.
Negotiates it with the vendor?
In other words, Johnny Jones calls, they say, we want some officers to work off duty. They say it's Lieutenant Jeff Price. Jeff calls them and works up the cost.
Okay.
And then it used to be Chad, it used to be Sergeant. Anyway.
Basically, there should be no negotiation. It should be, here's the event. Is it, bingo's gonna be monitored differently than a graduation party on a Friday night, you know, from, you know, 8 to 12, right?
Well,
You rate it by how many people you need, but not the rate.
yeah,
That's simple. When it's a city event, city sponsored, whatever capacity, I'm assuming you prefer your overtime. That's it, whatever that is, whatever that entails.
if Conan could get with Jeff, Lieutenant Price, that would, that could work.
That's fine.
Let me know.
So we've got a lot of homework, right? A lot of stuff to look up.
Yeah.
But I think it's good because it'll give us apples to apples and it'll give us some bite behind what we're doing. And at the next time, again, and if the meetings are too close, you need more time. Now that you've heard both sides to prepare our ask, to prepare your ask, that you're asking from the city, then ask for more time. It's okay. We're not set in stone. We can skip meeting 2 and go to 3 if we need to, and push the numbers back if we need to. And I don't feel rushed. We want to make sure we do this right. We started this early. Apparently, we haven't done it early before for a reason. We want to make sure we have enough time to thoroughly vet whatever, you know, the request is going to be to us.
Well, and I didn't want to portray it like that, in your mind. I'm available anytime.
Oh,
The
no,
thing
I'm
is,
saying.
sometimes you have a meeting and a week later you have a meeting and you just barely got the opportunity to sit down and talk to some of your staff members about, well, we talked about this, what do you think? And get me this, give me that. Well, sometimes a week is not sufficient time for you to compile all the data that you want to use. And that's where, you know, but we're good to go. And also I'm negotiating in other cities. So to me, the schedule frame, you know, try to get it out. So you always got, you know, maximize your time. And
that schedule can be changed, but as you said, the sooner we know ahead of time, we can plan all our other things we need to do around.
well, if the next week or, you know, actually next week, if we came and we do a presentation, the city may want to have another week before it puts this stuff together. We're totally fluid. It's just that I want to make sure we, you know, have a schedule on, because y'all's time is, you know, 8 to 5 and you're hitting it. You know, I'm sure this is not the only meeting you got this week. So.
I wish it was 8 to 5. Yes.
It's hard to put on the calendar right now since the budget workshop hasn't been set, so.
Well, the budget workshops essentially have been set. And as with scheduling, I'm sure Mayor will agree, it's first come, first serve, right? So we'll have to work around what the options are in that case. I was like, is this karate? What are you doing there? Okay. So
these are all.
So as needed, we can look at the schedule to dictate that so we can get that done. And I think that's important. Again, don't feel rushed. You know, don't feel any capacity that we need to do. We need the numbers for the budget, obviously. But if I think we started with enough of spare time, I know Susie's gonna probably come with her saying this, but if we needed we did it with a little bit of buffer of time in case of things, you know, lingering longer. So, okay.
Well, I think the initial email was trying to block time for this room, and you got council consideration. So, you know, I don't know that anyone intended to meet every week, but it was just blocking this. So it's up to, you know, it's up to a compromise, if you will, about what's in the best interest of everybody's time. So
whatever lets us get it right.
Yeah. Do you want to, you know, do you want to go ahead and use the 2 dates that we already have scheduled, the 22nd, 29th, or do you think it'd work better to skip next week and come back to 29th and then get another one as needed, or how do you think?
I would say we would need more time to compile the missing data,
Yeah.
but it depends on what you think. Right now, you guys are driving this next one, because we might turn and say, well, between meeting 3 and 4, we might need more time, depending on what you present, for us to then, okay, let's evaluate what you've given us. And it's Patty, there's a lot of missing items that we're trying to collect now, so your involvement, your office involvement in helping get some of these things is helpful as well. Well, maybe finding out when that new HGAC study is coming out to see if that's gonna help or not, what all this plays. So if you decide, and you don't have to decide right now.
Right. Well, we talked about it. It might be prudent for us to not meet the 22nd. Because some of the things that are up here today, it's gonna take time to compile the data.
100%.
And you know, a progress report can be handled over the email
Yes.
with regards to how close we are to having this report done, but, so I want, and it's a public meeting, so I'm sure posting all these things, we might use the 29th and then, just make a projection that, the 13th might be another good day to meet, but, basically I'm not set for one day of the week. I know y'all have council meetings and those are set on certain days, and you may have budget process meetings. And so a lot of it has to do with the venue of where we have the meetings at and its availability. So what's your thought process on?
My thought process becomes, and I see Kara's not on the call, so we'll need to get her real quick to make sure that we meet the deadlines for posting it properly.
Right.
But meeting number 3 will now become meeting number 2, skipping the one on the 22nd. And we will add tentatively scheduled meetings through whatever number needed based on how things go. So maybe right now, I think we've only got 3 scheduled, right? 3 or 4.
But we have 3. We had today is the 22nd and the 29th.
So now let's schedule tentatively as needed, 4, 5, 6. Is that enough? You want to go, scheduling, canceling is easy, right?
Yeah.
So
I
what
would schedule us through 7,
through 7? So we're gonna now.
just
well,
so that
essentially,
we've got plenty
we
on.
got 1 was today, our 3 will become 2, so now we gotta
Mhm.
schedule essentially 5 more.
5.
So tentatively scheduled. So add 5 more. Okay. So we'll work administratively to make sure we send that out, invites and what works based on the room calendar and so on and so forth.
Right. So our next firm meeting is going to be on the 29th, I guess.
Okay.
Right. That gives us,
That is,
that gives us
and-
a bye week so everybody can.
It's 2 days
Compile
after, I don't think we've got, we've already scheduled, so that's 2 days after the emergency meeting. Okay.
Part of this information that you're providing is these officers here are they gonna let me know what compensation of other cities with the same crime area that we talked about before? So the next meeting you'll have that information?
Correct. It's gonna be that collection of data and then compiling of data, being the historian of that data to present. Yeah, it's as the historian of that data, if you will. Like city ABC, they're just like us, and here's what their rate of pay is, here's their crime rate, here's their demographic, whatever those, as we mentioned, KPIs would be. So we can put a comparable, we're gonna fill in the blanks of the cities that are not comparable to ones that are comparable, and then what their compensation and so forth looks like.
Gotcha.
Sir.
What I would suggest is I just sent John a crime rates, 2021 and back.
Mhm.
If you're gonna give Caesar, I know him, any kind of comparison, it needs to be apples and oranges. What I suggest is my recommendation.
Sure.
That if you get Texas, you need to hire a subject matter expert or somebody, and I know who it would be if up to me, to show us and the mayor, because I know he's into this, cities that are our size that have our crime rates, which I sent you, exactly what our crime rates are. And then show if it's our size and it's Texas, that doesn't matter where it's at in Texas, but if you're gonna show us Wisconsin, we don't want to hear that. It's not gonna fly, John. And it's easily done if you hire the right criminologist to do this, or somebody that's good at it. Crime rate the same, officers are about the same, and population same.
Right.
Then you're talking business. You're gonna convince somebody with that. But if you're gonna throw us out just the population, as Troy said and Sergeant Garcia said, that doesn't count. We
Right.
want to see crime rates. That's what's keeping us hopping, and that's what's making our citizens scared. Okay, so you give us that, and I think you're gonna have.
Well, and that's just one aspect.
I mean-
What we had to do before was, it's common sense. If every city that borders the city,
Right.
that's a potential employer that can hire your police officer away. And
Right.
frankly, I'll tell you right now, they're all competing for your talent.
Mhm.
And they all have lateral entry programs that they
Sure.
may or may not have had before. So
'Cause if-
I didn't pick these cities for any other
Well,
reason.
you
than
give us something like Friendswood, and you're gonna say, come on,
Well,
that's like Beverly Hills compared to us, and they're waiting for crime.
that's what I'm saying. If we go through a process, a joint process of selecting the criteria, then that's how we get,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, I don't hire surveys to do, I do them myself.
Oh, you will? Okay.
Well, I'm just saying, for my bargaining, if, cities normally hire consultants and pay them the money to come arrive at a conclusion. I don't have that resource. You know, I am that consultant, you know,
That's why
I've
we
done this
hired
so many times.
That's what we hired a crime analyst to do, and a criminologist to do our manpower analysis. We want to know how many people we should really have as far as officers.
Well, and if you look at the list that I provided for, we didn't cherry pick cities based on the fact that they pay more or less. We just picked the cities in the geographic region
But
and
use
then
crime
laid
rate
them
in
out
there.
there.
No
So,
crime rate in there. Violent crime.
Right.
That's important. So we're comparing apples to apples, so we
Right.
can
Yeah.
justify the request and being made.
You gotta
And I
have
think
crime
you
rate,
made, you know,
violent
a good
crime.
point,
It's in there.
It's also human.
well, I said, I know of one city that, you know, hired a consultant that laid out and they went through the process, kind of like what we've done
Right.
today, where we talked about all the measures and they selected the criteria and then went out and got the comparable.
Good.
Because if you have the criteria that you agree on first, I mean, it's not about, like I said, it's not fundamentally fair for me or you to cherry pick the
Right.
list.
You know?
If your HR director goes out and picks only the cities that have low salaries compared, and we go
Right.
out and pick only the high, it's a lesson in futility. So I want it to be meaningful. And I think that over the couple of weeks, if we select a few cities that we all agree on.
But they gotta be the same crime rates. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, you're not gonna, it's not gonna. convince
Well,
anybody.
that's certainly one aspect of it, but if I pick a city who has a tax rate of 75 cents and pulls in this much money, that might not be a fair comparison to y'all that have 47.
Yeah.
You see, it's more than just one factor. I think it's a balance. You know, it's not, you know, it's not our intent
Well,
to
you
try
can throw in
to
that
cherry
too.
pick any number.
Throw in that too, throw in
Right.
the revenue streams, because that's a convincing factor too.
All right,
And-
I think
and-
I think we're all on the same page
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
you know, crime rate and staffing levels and size of the city and stuff are all kind of
Yeah.
the same thing that we want to try and compare between cities and stuff to see where our rates of pay are. And we're all on the same page on that. We'll come together and both sides will come up to an agreement that, you know, these are the cities we want to look at. And that's where we'll go from
And
there.
to that point, if it's, since Lamarque is so unique, to try to throw, if it becomes hard to get that data to where it matches completely, maybe you find city ABC that
Right.
is got 2 out of the 3, right? If they have the demographics and they have the crime rate, but they don't have the density or whatever it may be. You know, and hey, city A has all 3, city B has all 3, but here's 3 other cities that have 2 out of 3, right? And then that's also essentially, because hopefully we're gonna become one of those cities that doesn't have all those issues, right? And that's what we can keep comparing to, so we can also plan for the future. And in relation to the fact that you guys are probably tired and hungry, those of you that worked all night, we have our schedules, we're gonna balance that out. I have email addresses. I'll give you my card, Mr. Cleet. I'm sorry to give it to you earlier, Mr. Kerr. I called him Mr. Cleet. I'm sorry, Mr. Kerr. It's because it's Cleet.
My name's John, so it's-
John, thank you. Y'all should have my contact info right now. If you don't, please, I'll give you my card. I think this was very productive for a start. And I
Very
think
productive.
we're gonna get there. At least we know what our marching orders are moving forward. Okay. And I think there's more ways to compensate that is not just financially, and we're just gonna figure out what that all looks like. All right. We're not officially. All right, guys, thank you. Here's my card. I can get rest of the day. Go get some rest.